Good afternoon, all. Sounds like you can hear me okay. Thank you. Just a reminder that our meeting is being live streamed, and since we are here at Carver Branch Library or at any of the non-central library locations, just a reminder that when we have this AV equipment, these mics stay on for the duration of the meeting. There's no on-off button on them, so just bear that in mind in case there are side conversations. They will live stream right onto the thing, so I think that seems like a good thing to know. Nicholas, could you help us with a roll call?
Today is January 22nd, 2025. The time is 4:39 p.m. And those in attendance are Carla Gurgiolo.
Here.
Joanne Harris.
Here.
Josie Martinez.
Here.
Andrea Sanchez Muniz.
Here.
Marianne Valdez Hernandez.
Here.
Fernanda Cardenas.
Here.
Michelle Dalvis Robledo.
Here.
Marcy Ince.
Here.
Beth Graham.
Here.
Judy Cruz is absent. Jaspreet Kaur.
Here.
Board Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's start with silent meditation. Okay, thank you, everyone, and I appreciate everyone's attendance today. Let's start first with the approval of minutes. Within your packet, you'll find an updated version of the minutes for the Library Board of Trustees special called meeting on January 15th. And there is also the Library Board of Trustees meeting from November 20th, 2024, and also a special call meeting that occurred on December 3rd, 2024. These were also sent via email, but the minutes are included in your packet, and I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. I think we can do them all together unless there is a concern with any of the information that's presented there.
I so move. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I heard a motion. I don't know where it came from. Was that Marcy? Thank you, Marcy. These mics are awesome, but it also makes it harder to know where they're coming from. So we have a first from Marcy and a second from Andrea. Any discussion or comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we have a moment for public comments. It does look like no one signed up for public comments. Did anyone attend the meeting with the intention of sharing public comments and did not have an opportunity to sign up? I think there's one. There's one person? Okay.
No,
Yes.
I didn't sign, but I'm here for the first time, and I would love to get my comments. I don't know if that's the way it works. I don't.
Yes, it is. And you can just sign up on this sheet and then share your comments with us if you'd like to come up. And Jessica, will you help with that?
I don't know anything about it. That was the first time, so I will listen and ask when you comment or what, how do you do it?
The public comments are actually provided now, so now's the time. If there's anything you want to share, you can sign up and share it, and it's not a requirement. But if you would like to, we just ask that you sign in, and then we will provide you, we will listen for 3 minutes.
Doesn't matter what I say, so you have to, it has to do with this. The way it works. Sure.
It's in the repair shop. I'll just have to call it.
We'll let you know. Okay. My name is Alma Chavarria, and of course, I know Dr. Grant We have been communicating for the longest time because I do own a piece of Black history. I own a museum. So I'm going to say it fast, so then that's why, because he has a lot of my material that I have given it to him. So we bought our home 30 years ago, victims of violence, 30 blocks behind the Alamo Dome. People would pass by and say, your house is historical. Finally, during the pandemic, I asked my husband, let's fix it, but let's go through the San Antonio Historical Preservation, find out it's historical. They came and found out that the 900 square foot little home that we own is right now 108 years old, the first and the last of his architect. The structure in the back, where, because we're victims of violence, where it started, still standing. That one is 750 square feet. That one is 118 years old. Started off as residential, 60s called Abernathy Grocery Store. 30s and 40s during segregation and civil rights was a voting pool for Black people. Frank Abernathy owned that property. His first cousin was Reverend Ralph David Abernathy, who marched with MLK. Needs to be proven. MLK comes and stays in that house. Has been designated as a historical landmark. We dedicated it on the 5th of January. We had no media coverage, but from Washington, from county and the city, they all showed up, a handful. But since I have all this material that I've been given to Dr. Deal Grant, and he's going, oh wow, and why he's very, where is he?
Right there.
High five. But anyway, and one time a friend of mine, we come during COVID or before COVID, and we started talking, and then he heard, and he says, I've been looking for you. And that's how we got to meet Dr. Grant, and I've given him pictures and everything. I am on social media. Our museum is called Soul Alma Museum, which soul in English is the same word. And of course, it's going to be a community center for the children too, and it's called Gavarim Culture Center. Gavarim means, it's Hebrew for friendship and fellowship. So the house needs a lot of repair. I've talked about it. I've gone to Florida, I've gone to Spain, I've got, you name it, I've shared my story, but I wanted to put an input because all the material that he has, he needs to share it here with the community and the Carver Community Library. And that's my story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And I don't know, it feels timely that she shared that because we just celebrated MLK Day. So knowing that that Dr. King was here in San Antonio, that's, you know, a very heartwarming thing to think about. So thank you so much for that. We'll go on to the first agenda item, which is a report from the library chair. And I did miss the November meeting, so I thank Paul Stahl for presiding over that meeting. And I also want to welcome Michelle Dalbus Robledo, the new trustee for District 7. This is not her first meeting, but it is her first live-streamed meeting. She's currently the president of Bronze Station East Community Improvement Association, and we're very happy to have you join us. And some of you know that I lost my father last month. And although I was traveling, I had an opportunity to connect with some of you over the phone and in person. So I just want to share a few thoughts. I think some of these life milestones, you end up reflecting a little bit, deep self-reflection. So my father is, I wrote an op-ed about this last year, but my father is the reason that I'm so passionate about the library. He introduced the wonder of libraries and of books to me at the Laurel Library, which is located in Maryland. And I think it's kind of, the universe sometimes gives us some messages, but I think it's really nice that we're here at the Carver branch today because the Carver branch and my home, I still consider that my hometown library, share some similarities. It also operated out of a shared location from 1908 when it was established by a handful of community members until 1967. And in 1967, that Laurel Library got its own branch. It was the first in its county, and it's got its own dedicated building. And although it was very small, less than 9,000 square feet, and very poorly lit for some reason, it was pretty dark, it represented vast access to information. And it was a very important place for many of us. that went there as children. So 2 weeks ago, my mother and I visited the new revamped Laurel Library. This is part of the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And that building is now 31,000 square feet. In 2018, it won the AIA and ALA Library Building Award for its outstanding architectural design. And while we were there, we were admiring the open space and looking at the innovative technology and just really admiring how the library has changed over the years that we had been visiting. And I was really struck by the fact that the children's section was filled, the teen section was filled. They have a dedicated computer lab now, but the library's mission has really remained unchanged. And so as I was reflecting about that, and I was reflecting about the dedication and commitment that I have to the library and being on this board, I think that our role as trustees extends beyond our board meetings. And we are advocating and enabling access to the library, this community anchor that protects privacy. It informs digital literacy, and it ensures that access to information is not limited based on someone's economic means. So as one of the few remaining truly democratic institutions, we defend that fundamental right to read, learn, explore ideas without judgment or restriction. And throughout our commitment to intellectual freedom and equal access, we empower individuals to educate themselves, form their own opinions, and participate fully in society. So I just want to thank each of you for that, for your commitment to this board. It's an honor to serve alongside each of you. And I have a hope that these spaces will continue to transform lives across generations, creating many memories and lots of opportunities as well. And this remains our most powerful contribution to public good. I also want to take a moment and just express gratitude to Kathy Donlin, our interim library director, and her staff for sending flowers to my father's funeral. Seeing those flowers, it was very moving, knowing that I had the support of each of you. And I couldn't help reflect on the fact that what my dad loved about the library was symbolized in those flowers: community, the care that we have for one another, and the human connections that we all make, whether it's in a physical building or through these interactions that we had. I'm sorry. So I do deeply appreciate that. And before I close, I want to recognize Paul Stahl, our immediate past chair, for his extraordinary dedication to this board. For nearly 2 years, Paul was a steadfast steward of our library's mission. His leadership as chair helped guide this institution through times of tremendous change, while never losing sight of our core values and commitment to the community. The wisdom and thoughtful guidance he brought to this role leaves an indelible mark on our library system. And many of you served alongside Paul, so you know firsthand how he approached every challenge with genuine care and concern and unwavering dedication. So under his leadership, we've seen our library system grow, adapt, and strengthen its role as a cornerstone of our community, and we celebrated quite a few library milestones and celebrations as well. So Paul, I know you're out there watching the live stream. Your legacy of service sets a very high bar for those of us who continue this important work. Thank you for giving so much of yourself to ensure our libraries remain strong and vital for future generations. And I look forward to a more formal celebration of your time on the board in the near future. And as I kind of close out my remarks, I do want to say that as I reflect on this last month, I and my family having a personal loss, the closure of Paul's time on the board and the appointment of a new representative for District 7, the appointment of a new library director, I find myself kind of feeling that there is some hidden order to these passing of torches, so to speak. And the passing of the torch is very natural and very meaningful. And I think that it is a reminder that libraries can exist. You know, libraries do exist as a place of both tradition and transformation. And I hope that that's a reminder that we will keep close to our hearts as we move forward into a new chapter for the San Antonio Public Library, while we can still remain core to our mission, which is unchanging. So next, I will pass it to trustees to share their updates for the last month, and I'm going to start to my right with District 1, Carla.
This month I attended the Learn and Remember Holocaust kickoff. That to me, it's one of my favorite events. It's one of my favorite kickoffs of the month. I remember when I worked for the library, it was exciting. It used to be at the JCC and then moved to the library, so I've seen it grow over many years. So I was excited to be a part of it in a different aspect this year. So thank you. And Kathy, you did a great job.
Thank you. Joanne?
Okay, I attended the Harvard for the Andreas King book signing, and she is the daughter-in-law of Martin Luther King Jr., and it was very remarkable, and I really did enjoy it, and it was well attended. I was really happy about that. And I did attend the 40th anniversary of the Cowley Branch Library, and I was really happy to be there and see the different type of things that they do, and see they had a garden right on the next little area with which I saw greens, and I asked about that garden. And so it was a community garden, but they have all of those type of things, and it's just a real unique library, which I had not visited before. And so I was really impressed. And then I attended the Harvard again in December for the San Antonio Youth and Win Ensemble, and it's a group of students from across the city. They practice, I think, about the instructor, he gave all that information, but they're a mixture from all different schools, and they were excellent, and they were able to play and fit out in that little area, but they did it. And also on the same day, they had a group of girls that I came into this area, and they are girls that are interested in STEM, and the parents are the organizers of this thing. And so they make sure that their daughters get here on that Saturday and things like that, especially when school was out, you know, on the 20th, because I think it was like the 21st. And I attended all the meetings that I was assigned, and that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harris.
Yeah, it was
Let's see, I visited my 3 libraries over the holidays and was able to touch base with Councilwoman Villagran, and luckily she's feeling very well. I'm glad to hear that. We had Facilities Committee on January 8th and our called meeting on January 15th.
Okay. So I decided this year, because
one of our goals is to try to visit as many libraries as we can in a year. So I have made it my personal mission to not only read more physical books, because I don't want to take somebody's digital, and it just sits in my thing and then it disappears. So I've made a plan to visit every single library. I did cheat because I started in December by going to Cortez to pick up my physical books, but I have books that are on the way to Johnston right now, and I'm gonna map out and try to visit all 29 libraries. I don't know about the portal. That's one I may just have to, because I know Marcy is our advocate for that. That just may be like a Saturday just go experience, but I really want to get back into physically going into the libraries and not just relying on digital so much. And I am looking forward to the closing ceremony that they're going to have next week. And if you did not get the notice, it did change to the Norris Conference Center, which I saw in an email today. So make sure you check, because if you plan, show up to the right place.
I attended on January 11th. The Collins Garden Library had that 40th anniversary, and it was a nice ceremony. Terry Castillo, District 5 Councilwoman, was there. On Wednesday, December 18th, they had the employees. I was invited by the Friends of Bazan and Las Palmas and Memorial to attend a luncheon for their employees on December 18th. So I was able to attend all three, just an employee appreciation breakfast, and one of them was a lunch. And Las Palmas, we went to Our Lady of the Lake University to have it there for the employees.
Thank you.
Hi. No report, Chair.
My name is Michelle Dalvis Robledo, and I am very new to this and have been with a fire hose, given a lot of information. I would like to extend special thanks to Kathy. You have been an absolute godsend, because it is a lot to go through. You've always kept me informed, involved, and prepared is absolutely wonderful. Everybody at the library has been incredible. You guys just kept me on task. I've been to the Central Library several times this month, and for different trainings. And I think that the most amazing thing, and what people should really remember, is that the Learn and Remembers are outstanding. It was a shame that it was a bad night. It was a cold kind of night, but it was still an outstanding thing. And last, I wanted to extend a special thank you, and I know you're not here, Paul, but hopefully you're hearing this, to Paul Stahl. Paul is the absolute example of how you transfer information, ideas, and push forward from one group of people to another, from one person to another, and he has been absolutely key in that. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Marcy Ince. And I went to the Encino Branch Library holiday party, and I think it was really cute. The kids were loving it. But what I think I really loved the fact that it was very diversified. I mean, it was, you would think way out in the north, you would have one segment of the population, but that is just not true out there. It was everybody, and I was very impressed by that. I went back to go to the Encino Friends meeting, but it was canceled. So I went all the way over there. I got credit for going. I want to say that I feel differently. I feel grateful for the audio programs that we have here, and I really listen to a lot of books. Particularly when it's cold outside, you can't go anywhere, you can snuggle under your covers and get your headphones on. But one book in particular I just want to bring up to your attention was called The Personal Librarian.
And it was the first librarian of J.P. Morgan Chase and how they built that magnificent library. And I think that this group would love it. I mean, I've read a bunch of really great ones, but that one, I think this group would absolutely love that book. I went to the anniversary of Collins Garden, and I'm always surprised on how pretty so many of our libraries are. I think they really are just lovely. I mean, they're pretty on the outside and they're inviting on the inside. And so whoever's putting all that together, I want to thank you because I think you do a great job. And that's it. I'm attended a library in Westchester, California, when I was out there before the fires, and to see how they were running. And again, it was a lovely library, and I enjoyed that. I think it's important to try to visit other libraries in other cities when you're traveling.
Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. Beth Graham, District 10. I attended the Facilities Committee meeting and also attended the 40th anniversary celebration at Collins Garden Branch Library. And congratulations to that branch. They're doing a fantastic job. I was very pleased to see that the Friends group at that branch, which had been having some difficulties, has been reactivated. And they had representatives there giving out information and signing up interested people. And I'd also like to add that Kathy did a fantastic job running the program. And it was a great day. It was cold weather, but they had great attendance.
Excellent. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the interim director and the director's report.
Okay, thank you. Bless you. Thank you so much. Just to add a little bit to some of the events that folks have mentioned attending, so thank you as always, board members, for going to the events and representing the library so well. So we had the Holocaust Learn and Remember opening session on January 9th. We were very honored to have Leslie Davis Met, who's the museum director of the Holocaust Memorial Museum of San Antonio and has been our partner for 13 years, attend and speak. We also had Mayor Nirenberg, Judge Sakai, and Senator Jose Menendez, and they made some absolutely powerful remarks on the opening program, so we really appreciated that. And then this year we did it a little bit differently and had the public program immediately after in the evening. It was very well attended. We had about 100 folks, and that was on one of the really bad weather days, so that was absolutely fantastic. We had the Collins Garden Branch Library 40th anniversary, so that was wonderful, and I know folks have shared some of the dignitaries who attended. I really appreciated seeing so many of the board members there. We reopened the Sims Branch Library after their improvements. So that was a closure of 8 weeks. That happened on Monday, January 13th. And that was a project of about $500,000 where we did restroom renovations and some other improvements. We had, as Vice Chair Harris mentioned, just this past weekend on Sunday, the Library Dream Week event with Mrs. King here. Wife of Martin Luther King III, and she shared insights from her book, What is My Legacy? Also, we just concluded, really as of this morning, our winter weather activation as a library system as part of the city's emergency response. So we activated for 3 days. I really want to thank the library team for everything they did. It was an amazing effort. So across the 3-day activation, 337 people took advantage and visited our places to stay warm. We also provide, through a partnership with ACS, Animal Care Services, kennels in case people need to bring their pets. And so we did have some pets at our locations as well. I wanted to highlight and thank Elma Nieto Rodriguez, who really is our lead on the weather response. She did an interview with Telemundo, and so that, I think, also gets the word out about libraries and being a resource in emergencies, even to the community. And then the last thing I'll mention, you're going to get an update a little bit later in the meeting on our on-site solar project. So there are 4 library locations that we've partnered with the Office of Sustainability to implement on-site solar. IGO was our first one, and it's concluding. We'll also have on-site solar at Carver, Brook Hollow, and Las Palmas as those projects proceed. But we got exciting news yesterday that we will likely be able to bring to the Facilities Committee and then the board some additional sites for on-site solar. So we're very excited about that effort, and we'll bring you more information as that develops. That is breaking news. That is just from yesterday. So, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy as part of her director update or the director report? Okay, well, I also want to join in Kathy's remarks regarding the warming centers. I think it's incredible that we had nearly 350 people take advantage of the library locations as warming centers, and just the amount of gratitude for the staff that is working, especially on times when it's, generally a holiday or off periods. I really appreciate that. And I also want to acknowledge Assistant City Manager McCary, who's here as well, and I know he helped to coordinate the participation of the library in some of those warming stations as well. Next, we'll have the budget report. And Kathy, are you providing that?
I am.
Okay.
And I forgot I was, so I'm not ready to go here. Okay, so Gabby couldn't be with us, our department fiscal administrator, the best in the city, I always say. But I'll share with you that we have in your packet on green paper the October 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024 report. So this is 2 months since the change in the schedule that the board has over the winter break. That represents the first quarter, so 25% of the year has elapsed. We are on track for personnel services expenditures. We're slightly ahead on contractual services expenditures because of those encumbrances. There are often contracts that we pay out on a different time period than, say, monthly. So that just represents encumbrances. So we're at 46% spent there. In terms of commodities, we're on track. Other expenditures on track. And then really when we get down to some of our capital outlay items, these are things like furniture, fixtures, computer equipment in terms of our replacements for the system. And so that is slightly lower than 25%. That is usually a timing issue as we place orders in the beginning of the year, so that'll pick up as the year proceeds. We are 100% spent on our 2024 major gifts. Those run on a calendar year basis, so that's the major gift from the foundation of $230,000 and also the Friends gift of $40,500. We just really appreciate our partners, and we are completely committed and expended on those funds. And then you'll see on the report the new gifts for the calendar year 2025, $309,187 from the foundation for our annual endowment gifts. And then from the Friends of the San Antonio Public Library, the $35,000 that we'll be using for the staff day.
Fantastic, thank you. Any questions for Kathy on the budget? No questions? Okay, I'll move us along on the agenda. A report from the executive committee. The committee did meet on January 14th, and we set the agenda for today's meeting. Next is a report from the advocacy committee, and I understand they did not meet this period. And also a report from the budget committee, and I believe you also did not meet?
No, we didn't.
Thank you. And then next is a report from the facilities committee. Andrea?
And we did meet, and we do have some updates and some agenda items coming later.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Trustee Young. How are you doing? And welcome, Michelle, to the board meeting. Appreciate that. There is a construction report in your packet if anyone has any questions on any particular projects. And Michelle, if you have any questions on District 7, please reach out and let me know. I'll fill you in on anything we have going on. So we do have a couple of updates from the Facilities Committee meeting. Let me see, get this So the first one is the IGO branch library. We're missing a slide here. So we did have the primary purpose of this project was to make sure that we communicated with the public that we were not going to disrupt library services. So we took care of that. We made ample communication around the building. We had communication with the contractors, constant communication with the contractors. We had. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. It looks like we may have a slide problem.
Yeah, I see
See
that,
how-
yeah.
I don't know if it looks fine on my iPad. I have it right here, it looks fine.
It looks fine on my printout.
That's okay, let's
Okay.
continue, and it looks like Scott might be on trying to.
Okay. Well, again, we did have an education component, so they, Office of Sustainability was able to provide us with a full-size scale version of a solar panel that we have on display at IGO Library, so the public are getting a lot of interest in that. And then we do have, this is a layout of the facility, so you can see they have 3 sections of solar panels that they're installing. One is the solar parking canopy in the lower right corner, and then we have 2 rooftop canopy sections that they're putting in. They have installed, the solar panels are pretty much all installed. We have the roof canopy, or the solar parking canopy on the left, and then the rooftop panels on the right. They had a CPS shutdown on January 13th, and so they completed that during the morning hours. And then we had the directional boring that was done to get all the pieces connected. That was done on the 16th, so they're getting real close to being finished up with that project. So. The next project we were talking about is the SEMS library. As Kathy had mentioned, we did reopen that library on January 13th after an 8-week closure. That was a $436,000 project. So this one, as you can see, we added some color. We repainted the interior walls. We changed some of the colors on the right-hand side. And then we'll have a couple other pictures for you real quick. A good before and after picture. But we'll do that in a second. And then we also have one other project at SEMS that we'll go over real quick, is the patio demolition that we've been working on, the patio restoration.
While they're working on getting the slides back up,
Sure.
I wanted to ask a question about IGO.
Sure.
So I'm very excited about the solar panels being added there, and also equally excited for it to be over, because that, as you know, that library, which is also, I consider my home branch library, due to my kids' propensity for loving to go to IGO. It's very busy, right? So any time you miss, like losing even one parking spot. But it seems like one of the unintended consequences probably is that people will get, from the direct sunlight, will get like shelter over their parking spots, so keep their vehicles from getting too warm
Yes.
during the 9 months out of the year that the sun is like really blazing in San Antonio. So I was really excited about that. Is there, have we gotten any feedback from patrons at IGO about the construction or any disruptions?
I haven't, is Elma here? I haven't heard of anything at this point as far as any
Okay.
feedback, positive or negative. I have heard that they like the display inside, so they like that.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
did get some positive feedback. As Facilities Committee and the board suggested, we did some educational materials, and it includes a solar panel that people can see.
Take a look at.
And so people were very excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you. We can continue with back to SEMS.
So here's, again, pictures of the newly painted walls around the computer areas and the front entrance. This is a picture here of the large wall by the children's area there, and you can see the before picture had a very dark green color wall, and so we changed that to a lighter green color, and it really pops that mural on the wall, and staff has even commented that's a lot brighter to work in that area now, so they really like the change over there. The other project that I mentioned was the $720,000 patio restoration project. As you know, we've been having some issues with that patio, so we started demolition on that on January 13th, and as you can see, they boarded up along the windows to protect the glass. They've been so they got their big equipment in there, and they have completed most of the demo. I believe they got the stairway tore out last week, so, but that's progressing along. We actually got a schedule on that today, and they're currently looking at perhaps mid-March finish of that, but we'll keep an eye on that and keep you posted on that, so.
And this just in, Elma Nieto Rodriguez is watching the live stream, and she reported no negative feedback for IGO.
This is why we have live streams. Thank you, Alma. And Beth, I would love to join you for a visit at the Semmes Branch Library once that patio is done, and hopefully it'll be a little warmer. It looks beautiful, both inside and outside. I'm eager to go pay a
I
visit.
can recommend wearing your tinnies, and we can explore some of the paths while you're there too.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. And maybe we can help Andrea reach one of her goals at the same time, and we can just make this a whole board event for less than 5 of us to be there together.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, was that it for your updates? Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mark or Andrea in the Facilities Committee?
Thank you.
Do you have a question? Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, next we have a report from the Naming Committee.
We did not meet.
Okay, thank you. And next, the Ad hoc Board Policy Committee did not meet this reporting period. And then next is the report from the Ad hoc ILA Committee. We did meet on January 14th. The FY25 agreement between the city and Bexar County for library services was approved on December 10th at the Commissioner Court meeting. The library was represented at Commissioner's Court by Mr. McCary, Kathy Donlin, and Jessica Zarita. And as far as we learned at the committee meeting, no specific information was asked of library staff, but I do appreciate you all going and attending in person. Next, we'll hear a report from the Friends of the San Antonio Public Library. John Costello.
Good afternoon, trustees. So since our last time we met, the bookseller's been very active, which we're thrilled with. They had an awesome holiday sale and Christmas market, so now they're going to look to expand that. And I know they've already been trying to find new dates for new activities. And we're also very excited to point out that our Amazon sales have really made a difference this year. We're actually going to come in the black at the end of the year, thanks to our change in our structure and eliminating the paid position. So looking forward to next year, our net, if we keep it the same rate, will probably triple without that expense. So what was looking very gloomy earlier in the year has turned around, and we're really happy about that. We are still in the process of our membership renewal campaign and seeking new members. And remember that this coming Saturday, the 25th, is our annual meeting. And so we're looking forward to that. One of the big things on our agenda is we are going to be deciding what our logo will look like for the future. So that's it. And with this week's meeting, annual meeting, it will be my last time to appear before you all. And I have to say, on behalf of all the friends, thank you to the trustees and to all the staff, because you make our job so much more enjoyable, and you are always there to help and support us in so many different ways. And I know it's been a long 4 years, so we have seen a lot, but I have to say it's been really enjoyable. And thank you all for all you have done and for all you will continue to do and support the Friends.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And this annual meeting is at Central?
Yes, it's at Central, 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and next we'll hear from Amy Hone, a report on the San Antonio Public Library Foundation.
Good evening. I'm happy to report that in 2024, we did meet my personal goal, which was $1 million in cash to the library in calendar 2024. So that's something that, and those of you who have not been around a long time, don't know, it's been a very long time since we've done that. I think since the last time a library was built, that it was actually $1 million in cash from the foundation. So we're super proud of that. We had a very strong December and into a strong January already. Part of our expansion, I guess, is because we approached so many new people about supporting our Over the Edge event this year, and it was so different that it sort of opened things up. They didn't necessarily give to Over the Edge, but it facilitated a lot of very large gifts towards the end of the year. We do have $225,000 already on hand for upgrades to 3 teen spaces, which you guys will be hearing about in your committees later. But that's Get Up, Pan American, and Cody. For those of you who have been around a few years, you know that 3 years ago we pitched to the Charity Ball Association, Johnston, Guerra, and Pan American. And ever since then, they only funded one of those, Johnston. Ever since then, we've been trying to fund those other 2. And so we finally have it done. We have the money. The Marjorie Block Foundation, which is a relatively new foundation, in both establishment and as a donor to us, give a very generous donation. Bill Greehey kicked in a little bit, Nick and Lacey Hollis, and Chris and Gwen Graham. So Lacey and Gwen are both on our board and gave significant donations toward that. We also, for the Forest Hills Teen Space, which I know is a priority, that has been written into one of our latest grant applications, as well as in preparation here for Carver. So we already, as I said the last time, we are already teeing up donors for Carver. I know we don't have all the information yet, but fundraising is a marathon and not a sprint. And so we have already started talking to folks about that and have gotten a lot of really positive responses. So we are looking forward to getting that information all together so we can really start in earnest to fundraise for that. We did welcome 7 new board members last week that started at our board meeting. We have some real heavy hitters that have joined our board from Valero, HEB, Holt, and SAWS. So these are folks that are going to be super active and are already jumping in. So we are gearing up to get started on Katrina Ball. We do intend to ask the incoming new director to be our Katrine. We are still talking about who we want to ask to be Katrina, so if you have suggestions about that, shoot me an email and we're happy to look at all. We don't have anyone in particular that we prefer at this point. We're still just kicking around those ideas. I mentioned before, Diana Barrios Trevino and her husband Roland Trevino are our executive chairs this year. And in my last job, which was as director of Hope for the Future, they chaired the Khaki and Plaid Gala for me, and it was the only year we ever made $1 million. So they are really good chairs. So I'm looking forward to working with them again on that. And as we continue to partner with other nonprofits in our internal programs, you guys have heard me a million times talk about the Literacy Caravan. The Caravan, with the cold weather, we've identified a few needs, kiddos that didn't have coats, didn't have good shoes. So there are a couple of nonprofits who've come on board and actually this morning delivered a whole bunch of coats to one of the schools. I know they probably won't need them until next year, but at least they'll have the coats for then. And we still continue to work with reading therapy dogs that come out to our caravan visits as well. So we continue to expand our partnerships, and working with some new folks there is always a real joy with those kids, and in all 10 city council districts that we get to see. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Amy?
I feel like this microphone is up
When
so
is your,
high. I'm
when is your
standing.
next Library Foundation meeting?
Our next board meeting?
Board meeting,
Is in March. Mm-hmm. And I can email you the whole calendar if you don't have that we put it out last year for 2025 and 26.
And Amy, I believe y'all had already set the date for the next Katrina Ball?
November 1st.
Thank you.
November 1st is Katrina Ball, and then the next May will be Over the Edge, and then the next October will be the Literacy Luncheon, which I'm looking for an underwriter for LeVar Burton because that's who I want to bring in for the Literacy Luncheon.
Oh my
But
gosh.
He's very expensive. He's very expensive, but I'm manifesting that.
I have to say, your last literacy luncheon with the Dragon Subtopic was amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing.
He was really terrific. Adam was really, really great.
It was fantastic. Thank you so much, Amy. Wonderful updates, and we look forward to working with you all in the coming months. Next, I'd like to move up item number 18. just to consider that there may be some members of the community that are here to hear the update on the schematic design for the Carver Branch Library 2022 board project. So I'm going to move item number 18 up. And to introduce this item, I think it will be Kathy introducing the architects.
Yes, and I'll give just a little bit of context too for the project. So one thing we wanted to share, so tonight is the architects will be presenting in just a moment. I'll introduce Jeff Edwards to present the schematic design for the Carver Branch Library bond project. And so first, we just wanted to share the community engagement process leading up to tonight. So it is somewhat unusual for us to bring schematic design forward to the board for approval, but we wanted to make sure that we gave ample opportunity for community engagement leading up to this point. Kind of do this as a check with the board, and then move forward into the design development process. So way back in May 2022, the bond passed, and included in it was a project for $12.5 million for the Carver Branch Library for a major transformational project. In November 2023, we had the first formal community bond input meeting. This was pre-designed. This was hosted by our neighbors, Second Baptist Church, which we really appreciated, very well attended. We also had a little bit more informal event in January 2024, which was an open house here at the branch to make sure that folks could also have that as an avenue to give input as we kind of entered the design stage. In October 2024, the Facilities Committee approved the schematic design, and then we went through a second round of input at that point. So we had another formal community meeting in October 2024, again hosted by Second Baptist Church, and then we had a specific stakeholder meeting on December 10th, 2024 with the Carver Branch Library Friends, who are very, very active with this branch, and we really appreciate their support in so many ways, especially with programming here. And then we also invited the Second Baptist Church members to attend. We then, leading up to tonight, wanted to just provide one last opportunity for anyone to give input. So we did that through a number of tactics. Let me see if that's on the next slide. Oh, no. So we did it through an email campaign. So we emailed out some of the project information to anyone who has Carver Branch Library as their home library, or anyone who's used the Carver Branch Library recently. We also posted on our website. We did signage here at the branch, and we could take input either in response to the email, by phone. So we just wanted to really make sure there was an additional opportunity leading up to tonight. And then, of course, that brings us up to date. Here we are to present the schematic design for consideration by the board. So really the feedback that we have gotten over the course of that whole process is a desire to put the Carver Branch Library through this transformational project into context for the community, honor the history, honor the important members of the community who have contributed so much. There's been a lot of input about having a focus on arts and crafts and that community relationship with the branch, so really honoring that and visibly showing that in the branch, including the history. There was discussion about interim service. So during the construction phase, which is a bit in the future, we will have interim service through a location off-site because we will have to close the branch for construction. And so we did get quite a bit of feedback about making sure that that is in close proximity to the Carver Branch Library. And then also to explore ways to engage the community for future meetings, so we did. And then that next meeting, there was kind of more specific feedback, I would say, about exhibit space. So that's going to be very robust in the plan you're about to see. A focus on the history and on the namesake George Washington Carver particularly, but also the history of the branch. And then we did get feedback on the restrooms. So you'll see tonight that we have incorporated that feedback by showing single-user restrooms. Also, sometimes they're called family restrooms to provide more privacy to users. We got feedback regarding the plan to include an African and African American resource center and research area. So you'll see that on the footprint of the branch. We are still developing, with the help of Dr. Grant, the service model for that and what specifically that looks like from a service perspective. And then also to include genealogical resources. And so these are just some of those ongoing feedback opportunities that I spoke of a minute ago. Also, of course, we've included to engage Vice Chair Harris as the representative for the District 2 community, as well as Councilmember Miki Rodriguez throughout the process. This is the scope of work, and I think it's very familiar to everyone, so I'll just point out a couple of things which you'll see in detail in a minute. We're really excited about two firsts in the library system. One is the first tween area, really focused on services for customers who are 9 to 12 years old, and then the first tech studio. So we got feedback early on in the process to have some options for different uses of technology, and just one example is podcasting. There will also be a complete renovation, basically, of every square inch of this building, all furniture and fixtures, shelving, and realignment of the collection as well. And so with that, I'm very happy to introduce Jeff Edwards from Alta Architects, who is the principal on the project from the design team, and he will walk you through the schematic design.
Well, hey there, thank you so much for having me tonight. It's fun to be back. We've done this a couple times. It's going to be fun to look at it again. I get more excited every time I go through this. My name's Jeff Edwards with Alta Architects, and I'm here with one of my colleagues, Victor Carrillo, sitting back here. We've been working diligently on this with Kathy and DL and the whole team from the library, and so we want to show you what we've been up to tonight. Everybody's here, so I don't think I need to spend too much time on this slide. You sort of know the lay of the land. Yeah, kind of plot of land right there at Commerce and Honey. Kathy talked a little bit about this. This building does have super strong historical significance, both for the city and for me personally. It was done by one of San Antonio's most famous architects, Norcell Haywood, certainly the most famous African-American architect in the city's history. He worked with O'Neill Ford in the course of his career, and they have this, and Norcell's work shows this, as did O'Neill Ford's. It's this beautiful kind of crafted modernism, a regional modernism that they did, and that's kind of what this building represents here. I actually, and I've told this story, but I like to tell it every time. I got to work with Norcell when I was a young architect on the convention center expansion, and he had lots of stories to tell, great personality, but also a super strong architect, and I feel like I learned a lot from him. He's done a lot of famous buildings in and around San Antonio, Antioch Baptist Church, Second Baptist Church next door. Again, he worked on the convention center expansion, Brackenridge High School, just to name a few. So, you know, a very important architect in the city's history. He did this building back in 1973, and then he actually did another addition in 1994, and there have been a couple of small projects that happened along the way, but you can see there's been a pretty long gap since this building's really had kind of a major renovation. So that's what we're here to do today. So just a couple of views just to remind everybody about the existing building. You kind of see these views from the outside. And so to me, there are a couple of things that really stand out as things that I know we want to work hard to preserve. We do want to completely bring all new finishes, you know, new light fixtures, new air conditioning. Everything's going to be new in the building. But at the same time, within making everything new, it's super important to me, and I think to the community, to really honor what Norcell did and kind of respect the very best parts of his design. I think this beautiful kind of crafted, it's a wood molded Mexican brick that's on this that's so representative of that time period of architects in San Antonio is one of the things that I love. And you can see, you can see he's got this kind of butterfly roof with this inverted sloped roof in here that lets natural light into the clearest, in through the clerestories into the main reading room. And for me, that's one of the nicest things about the space. It really helps shape the space inside and brings that wonderful natural light in. So I'm going to ask you to kind of hold those two thoughts in your head as we go through this. This is the existing building. You can see it's a pretty tight site. And so there's parking around here. One of the challenges for us was there's not really a space to add more parking, but we know we don't want to diminish the parking either. And Kathy told us that there was a very recent project to kind of update the playground up here. We don't want to mess that up. And similarly, there are some beautiful existing trees on the site. And so we want to try and preserve those, right? And so that leaves us kind of a small area for an addition. So the existing building, which we're going to completely redo, is about 10,700 square feet. And then we're going to make about a 2,500 square foot addition onto that with this phase one renovation of the Carver Library. So with that, we'll kind of dive into the schematic design. So this is the reimagined existing building and the addition. And so you can see here, the area that's outlined with the red dash is the existing building that will be completely renovated. And the area that's here with the blue dash, that is the new addition. And so I want to look at this from the perspective of the site plan. So you can see we haven't really touched any of those critical elements that I talked about earlier. The parking, the playground, those big trees kind of leading into the building. One thing that we are suggesting in this, because we do want people, even though we want to respect the beautiful history of the building, we want people to know that we've done something new and exciting and fun inside. And so one of the big moves that we're suggesting is moving the front entrance here around to the east side, where you see the east side of the building, where you see that yellow square right there. It does a couple things for us. It gives us a prominent entrance that people will see when they're parking, and you'll see in the elevations and the renderings of that, you know, it's going to be a beacon that draws people in. But it also puts handicap parking much closer to the entrance, and we think that's a benefit as well. So, so again, that's the kind of general lay of the land. There's the existing outdoor area back here, the event space that DL uses. We know we want to preserve that and try and do things to enhance the use of that a little bit. I'm going to go to the plan if that's okay. So here's an enlarged plan. So basically, the way this is laid out, you'd walk in, there's a lobby here, and we've set the building up so that this new addition, the meeting space, it's almost like a meeting center over here. And the library could actually potentially function independently of one another. So you could, if you wanted to, have, when the library is closed, you could have meetings in that meeting space, like on the weekends or in the evenings, if there wanted to be a community meeting or a neighborhood meeting. Those can happen because we've got restrooms right here that both connect both sides of the building, but also can be closed off to serve either side, right? And so we think that that's a kind of a fun element to that. So if you come into the lobby here, and Kathy did talk about opportunities for some art and elements that talk about the history of the building and the name of the building. So we'll have those kind of in the back wall of that lobby there. And then we've got the meeting space over here. We've got storage in that meeting space so that you can store furniture in there to lay the space out with tables or with only chairs, all different kinds of configurations. So that's going to, I think, function really nicely over there. And then if you come in and go to the left, you're in the existing building, but again, it's going to have completely new finishes, completely new fixtures, and everything in here. And so you can see we've kind of moved the circulation desk back here. We're envisioning a bigger and better technical services area so that DL's team has an efficient place to work and they can do more from within the library in that space right there. There's storage for them, there's a break room, a little office, all that kind of stuff. Up from there, we have in the orange area there's a new teen area, right? And these are all gonna have some enclosures to them so that if there's something really happening in that space, they can be closed off so they don't necessarily have to disturb the other patrons in the building. Immediately adjacent to that teen area is the African American Resource Center. And again, we've got a big area up here where we're going to build in some display cases and things, and we've got an opportunity to tell a story about both the building and the community up here. One other thing that we did is we created a new kind of connection to that outdoor event space from the library that's going to make that space a little bit easier to access and definitely easier to use from within the building. And then here is what Kathy was talking about. So the restrooms in the building right now, we're going to keep that location, but we're going to completely scrape it and build all new restrooms here, and they will all be private type restrooms. I think y'all are moving to that in some of your other buildings. We've worked with Kathy on that. It's a great way. A lot of restaurants and all kinds of places are moving in that direction because it just feels nicer. It's a little more private. We can make each one of those very nice, and it doesn't have to feel like an old school restroom or something. This is the space we're in right now, and it will basically stay a multi-purpose space, but it'll have all new lighting, new finishes, new AV, and hopefully work much, much better even than what you're seeing today. So if you love it now, you're going to really love it when we're finished with this. Again, there's a storage closet here for the building so that all these can, again, be reconfigured. You can set this room up in many different ways. We've got the tech studio where people are going to be able to do podcasts and all kinds of other things immediately adjacent to that. Then we've got the learn space right next to that. And I will point out that this whole wall is glass, as is the wall between the children's and the tween area, which I'll talk about in just a second. And the thinking is that if somebody comes in and they want to attend a class or learn how to do a resume or something in the learn space, they could potentially bring their child with them who could be in the children's area, but you still have a visual line of sight between those two things because they're both glass walls within there. But, you know, they're separated so that you can think and concentrate when you're working on things in the learn space. And then I mentioned earlier, so the children's and then the tween area below, and those, they do have a separation wall, but they're fundamentally sort of connected spaces, but they each are going to have their own separate expression of furniture and colors inside to really kind of give each group of young people their own area to kind of inhabit there. And then that brings us back down to this connecting corridor between the meeting space and the existing building. And again, all this is going to be completely new furnishings, new bookcases. We've got an information desk in the center here with all of the computer stations. I think it's going to be really great. And so I'm gonna advance. I'll let y'all hold your thoughts. If you've got questions, I'm happy to come back to it. So this is looking from the east right here. So this is that new lobby space. And what we want to do with the lobby, our thinking is that we're going to do a new intervention to let people know that this is, we've really modernized the building while keeping the spirit of the original building in here. And so this is going to be a beautiful glass system with no mullions. It's going to be very slick kind of glazing. It's going to act as a lantern at night, right? We'll be able to light it from the inside and you'll be able to see that lobby space right there. And up above, I'm going to ask you to sort of notice there's a little bit of a pattern on the glass up there. So this does face east. And so we're sensitive to the fact that light can come in here, right? And so we do want to be careful about that. So we're proposing a frit pattern on this upper glass, which is basically a baked-on ceramic that cuts down the glass and just lets a dappled light come through into that main space. But I really think this is going to be a fantastic intervention. And so this is the existing building, and you see those kind of that butterfly roof right here with the clerestory glass. And then this is our new meeting room, which is going to have that same expression. So we're going to have the exact same slope on that roof to kind of follow through on Norcell's thinking. And then we've actually worked with Acme Brick here in town to find a brick that's exactly, it's a perfect match really for the existing brick. And so we're gonna bring that around as well. Here's a little bit closer, and so you can begin to see that pattern up there, view to the main entrance here. And I'm gonna kind of go to the next one, so just keep that in mind. So actually, in one of our meetings, DL had a brilliant, I gotta give him credit for this, suggestion. He brought this symbol and the word Sankofa to us. And it's a Ghanaian word, and to me, there are lots of kind of interpretations of it. But the very last one, where it talks about the importance of learning from the past to shape a better future, I really can't honestly think of a better and more beautiful way to describe what a library does. And so to me, this was just like the perfect symbol to kind of use. And so we're going to use it on that exterior glass, but it's also going to become a thematic symbol that we'll bring inside. And so if we have graphics and other kinds of patterning inside the building, you are likely going to see this pattern kind of repeated as we continue to move in there. So DL, thanks again. I appreciate it. Every time I got to give him credit for that. So it was a really nice, and that's the way these design processes can be so fun, because everybody brings something to the table, and the end result is a product of everybody's kind of creative thinking. Okay, so this is a view from the north. Oh, you know, Kathy, I did one thing again. So I'm standing where the new digital sign is going to go, which is right out on, I passed it up in the site plan. I did this the last time. It's going to go on the corner up at Commerce Street, right there. We'll have a big new digital sign. They'll be able to tell about events that are going to be happening at the library. And so we're kind of standing right in front of that digital sign, looking back at the new building there. Again, you see that kind of sloping roof and the brick. And then I'm going to come around to the side here. So this is kind of a view from Honey, a little bit further south. North is to the right up there where the flags are, and that's kind of the area, the digital sign's just right off screen to the right of that. And so this is a view from Commerce, and I want to point out, we're showing a placeholder here, right? We think it would be a fun opportunity to have public art participate with us. In this, no pressure though. But and it doesn't have to go here, but we just think it'd be nice if it was something that could be seen from the main street here as people come by. It'll let them know, oh wow, you know, something new is happening in here, something cultural, creative. And so we put a placeholder. This is a little Doc Spellman painting that we had, who's an artist from the East Side. But we're hoping, I've got great expectations for what we're going to be able to do out here. I think it's going to be a fun potential element on that end of the library. And then we'll light that at night. It'll be just a great sort of element there. Again, kind of a couple of bird's eye views here. You can kind of see how the roof on the new meeting space really sort of reflects what Norcell's doing with his building. You see the playground area, the cover over that over here in the blue. And the new addition is going to really kind of transform the feeling of that outdoor space and make it a little bit more like a courtyard, because it's going to be screened from the parking now, right? Which I think will be nice. And so we're hoping to work with DL to kind of think of ways to program that space so things can actually happen just outside the library over here, and I think that'll be a great addition to the building. And with that, I tend to talk too much, so I'm sorry if I took too long, but I'll say thank you, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them, or point to my trustee colleague over here to answer them.
Is there any possibility that this can incorporate solar panels?
There are going to be, so we've already had conversations with the city's team working about bringing the solar panels in. We're thinking about doing, basically having some of the solar panels be over some of the parking, so it actually provides covered parking in the summer too. So it's going to kind of do double duty out there. And so that is absolutely in the works, and we're kind of coordinating with the city's team on that. And I think that's going to be a great addition. We didn't show it on these because we hadn't, when we did these little renderings, we hadn't really had that meeting yet and kind of, envisioned how that was going to work. But you'll see it the next time we show some images of this.
So Carver is a site that the board approved for on-site solar, and it'll be a number of parking canopies. So it will be a site for
That's
on-site
going to be
solar.
great, actually. I think it's going to be as great in the summer just to shade your car as it is to get the power from the solar panels. So it's going to be a nice feature.
Can you go back to the schematic, the floor plan that you have?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I am going to call for some help. For some reason, it doesn't seem to be backing up. It's probably my I've got an itchy trigger finger. Okay, no more.
They have to tell me that too. Stop pressing the button,
That's hard.
Kathy.
That's a hard thing for me, Kathy. You know that. I have to work out my nervous energy somehow when I'm up here.
I want to ask a couple questions here,
Yeah.
but I want to encourage other trustees, if you have questions, please get them ready as well. So the outdoor event space, maybe you could go back 2 more slides, Scott? Or, I'm sorry, the existing building slides. There was like some pictures of the existing building.
So that's the existing plan. You want to go to
Yeah.
some of the elements?
I was just curious, so, and maybe I'm just not familiar, that existing outdoor space, how do you access it? I haven't been here. Is it just through the door?
One set of doors, and
Okay.
it's kind of a funky, access to it, or you access it from outside. And so we're adding that additional path
Yeah.
directly from the library. So we'll still have a door from this space, right? But then we'll also have a new door kind of from that central kind of, the main part of the library that will give another access there. So it allows you, for instance, if you're doing something out there, to kind of use this as a staging room, but you'll still have a way out there,
Okay.
So I think that it seems crazy, it's just adding a door, but I think it's going to give you a lot more functionality of that space.
Got it.
If I could just
Sure.
add one thing, so DL Grant is at the back of the room. Thank you to DL again. So many large events happen here at the Carver Branch Library that DL has activated basically every spot in this building and outside the building along with his team. And so this was really an effort to leverage further the existing pad out there, but to really make the connection with the building, not just have it be out of an emergency exit, but make it intentional. So I think it's going to be a huge improvement because he has events that have, hundreds of attendees.
Yeah, I recall visiting like a authors event previously. Joanne, I don't know if you remember which event that was, but it was like a festival basically for authors. And I do remember being out there, but I just cannot for the life of me remember how we got out there. So I was just curious about that.
Probably
So-
because it wasn't super memorable
Yeah,
at
maybe
the time.
that's
Right.
what it was. So if you could go forward to the plan, and this is just more out of curiosity, the upper corner, which kind of shows where kind of like drawing a line from the existing playground to the new Learn Center. Out of curiosity, it seems like there is some additional space there, and I know that we're always busting at the seams at Carver, especially from some of the big events. Was that space that was usable?
So it is usable. I mean, is it okay? Can we talk about?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I gotta be real careful. So
Now I can't say no, Jeff. Everybody's going to be like, what is this?
I've got to do is all of my city colleagues in here will tell you, I need to be a good steward of the city's dollars on this, right? And so
Yeah.
I get really excited about what I'm doing, but I'm also very serious about making sure that I keep this project on budget so that we don't trip up midway through and have to completely reconceptualize this, right? And so we started the project by doing a program and basically an estimate right at the beginning, day one. And I'm happy, and we've got a great contractor on board now in Byrne Construction. They've been working very closely with us. They've done estimates, and I'm happy to say we are in the budget, right?
Okay.
And one of the things that you can do when you're adding on to buildings that helps keep it more economical is you concentrate your addition. The more you're spreading little things out everywhere and having to add a slab here and add a piece here, it makes it cost more for the same amount of square footage, right?
Okay.
But do you see the area that's hatched in pink, in red or
Yes.
pink?
Mhm.
So we've already started envisioning phase 2 addition
Okay.
for this library,
Yeah.
right? And I'm super excited about that. We've got some really fun ideas, on that, which we'll show you when we get a little bit further into it. But we concentrated the addition in that one space because really what we determined is, I'll tell you how we backed into it. We calculated, because we kind of know how much it takes to renovate an existing structure like this, right? Cost per square foot. And so we backed into it by saying, okay, we're going to replace everything, all new mechanical systems, all that. And we've got X number of square feet, so 10,700 square feet of renovation to do. And so we subtracted that from the budget and said, okay, how much can we add now? And that's how we got to the 2,500 square feet. And so my thinking is that really concentrating that 2,500, because that's not a ton,
Right.
in one location is really the way to have the biggest impact.
Okay.
But these other areas are definitely possibilities for places to add.
Mhm.
And I think that can be a discussion as, when we get to the point where we're ready to talk about phase 2, let's revisit that issue,
Sure.
I would say. But I personally think, having done this a lot, that this is gonna give you the biggest bang for your buck if we
Okay.
kind of concentrate that addition in one spot.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And I'm hearing the takeaway that we have a 2027 bond coming up. So this sounds like something where we need to mobilize and really take seriously the opportunity for future expansion. I think it's something that the community really needs because the library, this branch is already it's packed all the time. Yes, yes. And then you also made reference to potential art location, which it obviously is outside your purview, but I wanted to acknowledge the $300K that this current 2022 bond provided for art, and I know we'll hear more about that with a different agenda item. So that's great. Thank you for answering my questions. I want to see if any other trustees have any questions. This is an action item.
Well, I remember you talked about in the phase 2, that you would have like a canopy over this back section.
That's
That-
a
that
big
was
goal,
yeah.
to enhance that back area.
Yeah,
right?
so it wouldn't be so bad in
For
the summer.
sure, in phase 2, I think we should say we'll do that, right? Right this minute, I can't say anything more
Sure.
than that, because
Yeah.
we're gonna monitor those dollars. If we found, at the end of the day, that through working with Byrne, we're able to kind of refine this and have a little extra money, that's probably one of the areas that I would like to see that any extra money gets spent, is improving and enhancing that back outdoor area, right?
Yeah.
Because again, DL's programs are so successful that, he doesn't have quite yet a big enough space to really have everybody in an inside condition. And so we'd love to, for instance, I'll just say as a for instance, potentially do a cover over that area back there, so that it could kind of be used in all weather conditions and provide shade back there. It could be an opportunity for lighting. So we put a pin in that, and we're holding that thought. And if, again, if we have any additional dollars in this project, we may look at making some enhancements about, for instance, how you get to it from the outside, some things like that. But I've gotta
sure.
watch the dollars right this minute.
And
Yeah.
so just to share for a little bit of context, a couple of things. One is that there will be a fundraising campaign for the Carver Branch Library for Phase 1. So that's an opportunity to bring resources to the project, for example, for the outdoor event space. Amy Hone shot me a very meaningful look, so I wanted to mention that. So they're going to bring resources and work with us. Really a big first step on the capital campaign with the foundation is approval tonight of the schematic design, so we know what spaces we're working with. With respect to Phase 2, just very briefly, because it's such a high priority to fulfill that vision of the future expansion, particularly of the meeting room space, within the current funding, the 2022 bond funding, we are doing design for the Phase 2, right? So we will end up at the end with 90% construction drawings to go into the 2027 bond process. So it's basically shovel-ready going into that process. That's how strongly we wanted to leverage the current project. And then just two other very brief things. Mentioned the public art. Of course, that's funded. That will happen on a parallel track, but we're going to kick off that community engagement process. And then the digital sign, one reason Jeff was kind of saying, oh gosh, I'm standing where the digital sign is, I didn't show it on the plan, is when we presented to the facilities committee, one of the pieces of feedback was to make sure that that digital sign is as close to the road and as visible as it can possibly be. And so the exact location isn't determined yet, but that will be determined, and we'll make it as visible as we possibly can. So thank you for letting me just add those few things.
And I think Fernanda had a question, and also Ms. Harris. Fernanda, do you want to ask?
I was just curious about that event, outdoor event space that, potentially to be there. Are y'all also considering some type of cooling element to it? We all know it's San Antonio and it's very hot, and as much as outdoor activities we want to have, sometimes the weather does not allow us. So are we integrating some type of fans or
Yes.
something into that?
Yes, so we've talked about we've talked about fans, we talked about misters, so yes, because that was definitely some of the feedback, shade, and then even with full shade, the temperatures can be quite hot.
Ms. Harris? Did you have a question? No? And then one final question that I have, the entrance today, how would that change? I see that there's clearly like a new plan for the space, but would it get blocked off?
So,
or-
no, I think we'll leave, architecturally, from the outside, I think we should leave that there. I mean, it definitely is a feature. It's not a huge feature on the building to me, right? It's not, in other words, it's not real big.
Right.
But I think it's beautiful, right, what they've done out there, and that's part of the addition. So that was part of the addition to the building, right?
Mhm.
And so we would leave it, but we just think, especially because of where the addition we think has to go on this thing, we're making it harder, so you'd have to walk around all that to get to the current entrance.
Right.
And so we thought also it's nice to have, like, for instance, people who are mobility impaired, to have that parking be really close to that new front entrance. And so it'll be a feature, and, we're still sort of working through that a little bit. We're not gonna take it out, but it won't be the main entrance to the building anymore.
And one consideration of where the children's area is and the tween area is, is the adjacency to the playground. And so we have a couple of branches where we do maintain that access because people obviously want to have a shortcut, right, to go out to the playground. So we have that at a number of locations, so we'll take that by way of feedback too, to kind of preserve that way for people to easily get out to
So in the
that
next,
area.
in the rendering you had, I think it's like next slide or two slides, the one with the art.
Okay.
I think you showed maybe in that, maybe one more.
One more?
No,
Oh, there, right there.
yeah. So here you're showing, I think that's showing the front entrance still to the far right.
Yes,
I mean,
it
it's
is.
a little bit obscured, but it almost looks like it's been bricked in. Is that?
No, it's
Is
not
that
gonna be bricked in. I mean,
Okay.
it's gonna, so for sure, we would leave windows there, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea of the door. I'm real sensitive to the security concerns,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And so we gotta work with Kathy and with DL to make sure everybody's comfortable with what's there. If we could maintain the door, I think that'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it basically leads out from the children's and tweens
Yeah,
area to the sort of courtyard and the play area, which I think would be really, really nice.
And we have at a couple of locations kind of overcome that operational concern in a number of ways. So for example, the Schaefer branch is one where we have that
Back
way
door,
to.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll work through that as we're continue to develop the plans, but I love that idea,
Okay,
honestly.
that's great. Any other questions before, I will be asking for motion? No? Okay, so thank you for providing this information. I
Thank you all for
appreciate it.
having me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to consider this schematic design for the Carver Branch Library.
Okay, I move that we approve the schematic design as presented for the Carver Branch Library 2022 bond project.
I second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Deliberation? It's hard for me to make eye contact with all of you, but I am trying. Okay, so we can go ahead and vote. And Nicholas, could you assist us in a roll call vote, please?
Carla Gurgiolo,
Aye.
Joanne Harris,
Aye.
Josie Martinez,
Aye.
Andrea Sanchez Muniz,
Aye.
Marianne Valdez Hernandez,
Aye.
Fernanda Cardenas,
Aye.
Michelle Dalvis Robledo,
Aye.
Marcy Ince, Beth Graham,
Aye.
Judy Cruz is absent, Jaspreet Kaur.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you again, and we look forward to having you back, Jeff, in the future to provide updates along the way.
I'll be happy to do it. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And then I'll just also make an appeal that any community members, whether here or online, if you continue to have feedback, please feel free to take advantage of the many methods that Kathy had laid out. Share your feedback. We definitely want to know what you all are thinking. So next we'll go to staff report regarding the Carver Branch Library, and I believe Haley will introduce the wonderful librarian.
Good evening, Board. I'm Haley Holmes, Interim Assistant to the Director, and I have the honor of introducing Dr. D.L. Grant, Manager of this branch, tonight to talk about the Carver Branch further. I do have to say that D.L. started with SAPL in 1997. I think it's so hard to believe when you look at Mr. Grant, and to say also that I'm proud to say that I have known DL for almost 20 years. The two of us had the privilege of opening the Sims Branch Library as Librarian Ones in 2005, and we had a great 2 years. We had a lot of fun together. So I'm proud to say that. We then, after 2 years, went our separate ways, and DL became the manager of the Carver Branch in 2014. And of course, I followed his career and have always been aware of the great work that he's done here at the branch. But over the last year, I've been the administrator of Carver, so I've seen firsthand how important he is to this branch and all of the great work that the staff do here. And I have to say that I see it, that he is the conduit between the community and the library, and that this library is a cornerstone of this community and how important it is. And so I have the privilege tonight to introduce Dr. D.L. Grant, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what they do here.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
Stakeholders, Mr. McCary, I'm so glad to have everyone with you. My boss is very kind, but we do go back a long way. We did have some good times. She's the most amazing creative person you ever want to meet. I mean, she was an inspiration. She got her doctorate. I got my doctorate. So I think we fed off each other's energy. So thank you again so much. The slide you're looking at, well, that's the branch, of course, and we're glad that everyone is with us this evening. Let's go to the second branch. That's just a little bit about me. I started in 1997 at what is now Tobin branch. Then I moved on to San Pedro, Sims, where Haley and I got to work together. And then I started it in 2007 here at Carver Branch, and it's been a great ride. Where would we be without our community? That's where all our support comes from, and I'm just happy to be here because whenever we've asked anything from the community, ideas, inspiration, they do so much for us, and where would we be without them? I'd like to move on to the next slide, and I just want to say by way of getting this started, getting things rolling. If you got the impression, despite freezing temperatures, that Monday's march in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a success, you can chalk that up to careful planning of the MLK Commission, the organization highlighted in this slide. Many of you might not know that the commission needed a place to meet, to plan, to strategize. Well, the Carver, the staff, we were honored to host and provide support for the commission, whose efforts still managed to attract some 100,000 participants despite all that cold weather. I might add, the commission reached out to the Carver in late August in 2024 and asked to meet here. That gave us the opportunity to demonstrate some of the core values of the city of San Antonio. Some things we're noted for. I can think of teamwork and professionalism that we were able to show that those are things that are meaningful to us. You'll be happy to know they received high marks from the commission chair, Dwayne Robinson, and the chair of the march, Deborah Seward. We heard from her this morning. She sent a text. It was really sweet. You guys are awesome. I love working with you. Well, we love working with them. The next slide I'd like to share with you is, well, it's been touched upon because Joanne Harris and Kathy, they were with us just this past Sunday as we welcomed a special guest. These images that you've seen depict a new friend for San Antonio Public Library and Carver Branch. On Sunday, January 19th, we welcomed Andrea Waters King. She is the daughter-in-law of Dr. King. She visited us for Dream Week, and an event which honors her late father-in-law and his humanitarian work. It was an absolute joy having her in the library to help her launch her new book, What Is My Legacy?, which we soon hope to be circulating. The next slide is very interesting. Hands-on physics is what we're going to be working on next. Hands-on physics is a NASA grant-funded program to attract inner-city children to STEM. Finis Stribling, the young man featured there, is a football player at the University of Minnesota, no, it's the University of Missouri. And he followed his advisor to UTSA. And when he got here, he began working on this grant. And this grant was to work, like I was saying, with inner city youth. And he was like, okay, who are we going to work with? He could have worked with anybody in San Antonio, but he chose. He got together with Crescencia Huff, who's over children's service coordinator, and our children's librarian, Ralph Jarzenbeck. They got together, they would meet here. We figured out how this could work, and it's going to be launching next week, so we'll keep you posted on how that goes. But that's going to be great to attract those kids to STEM careers, and who knows, our next scientist could be in our midst, and won't that be interesting? Finally, I just want to say it's been a really good year for us. We continue to establish partnerships, and we continue reaching for the stars. In November, just this past November, we partnered with SAPL, the San Antonio African American Community Archivist Museum, which you can see that there's the flyer, and those are two of the heirs of the Sutton family. We also another partner was Democratizing Social Justice from UTSA. It's an initiative that they've launched, and we all got together and hosted this discussion on the legacy of the amazing Sutton family. And I have to say that word because how were they able to achieve so much in the times in which the matriarch and the patriarch and they came to San Antonio and established their lives here? It was. I keep saying the word honor. It was an absolute honor to be able to host this program. This room was jam-packed with nearly 100 people. We had to move all the furniture out of here, but we got them in here. And what was so interesting was so many different people showed up. Hispanics, blacks, white. Everybody had their own little bit of knowledge about the Sutton family, which was very fascinating because we don't know what people are, what they're researching and reading, but it was so fascinating because when they would ask a question, they would preface it with, I heard that, I learned that, I'm interested in how they, so on and so on. So that was a wonderful opportunity that we had. And we got a lot of positive feedback from that. We were very grateful. But they had an impact that was felt across the country and beyond, especially one son, in closing, who traveled to Russia in the 1930s with George Washington Carver. So, I'm very happy that we are the namesake George Washington Carver because that event helped us to learn a little bit more about him, his connection to the family. George Washington Carver was often in San Antonio, and he interacted in the community. He stayed with the Sutton family at the homestead, which is like just east of here. So we were very, I'm not gonna say that word, we're just very happy that we were able to work together with stakeholders to bring this together. And with the new expansion that we are gonna get, we hope to gather even more into this space where we could give you dynamic, exciting programming that speaks to people's history and that uplifts people's lives, maybe raises people's ambitions and hopes. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. And before
Thank you.
before you go too far, can I share a personal inspiration that I have from the Sutton family? So a few years ago, I came to, like Andrea said, sometimes I just want to visit other branches. And I came out here to Carver one day, and there was a program going on with some quilt makers. And they were the most skilled sewers that I have seen. They were all set up with their sewing machines, and they were quilting and chatting, and they had no interest in who else was coming in to see what they were doing. But I recently at Central Library, and this is an exhibit that's going on right now, there is a wonderful exhibit there, and I think it's called Haley Will Help Me Change Makers, I think was the title. Yes, and I had a suspicion that if it wasn't the exact same group that meets here, that there might be some members of that same group that have put together some quilts. But I believe it was a member of the Sutton family, maybe a granddaughter or a great-granddaughter, that actively worked in the San Antonio community to desegregate lunch counters in the 60s. And there is a wonderful quilt that's maybe inspired by the work of that descendant of the Sutton family, and it shows a lunch counter that was desegregated. One of the first ones in the country, I think, happened here in San Antonio. So it's a wonderful piece of history, and like you said, everyone takes their own little pieces of memories together, weaving them together, to use a quilt metaphor there. But I think it's wonderful that Carver Branch Library has always had very inspiring makers. Beth and I had appreciated a piece of art, which was the Black Panther throne a few years ago that was here. And, but I just want to commend you for what you're doing in the community to welcome makers and creators to this space. That's something special that you are doing for the community. It's so, so important and so needed. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of the work that you're doing. And I love seeing their work on display at Central Library. So those of you who haven't seen that, please make a trip before February 15th, I think was the end date for that, and check out that work. Thank you, Dr. Grant.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, and next we'll receive a staff report on the fiscal 2024 performance metrics.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Brandon Polashik, a Special Project Manager, and I have a story to tell about how well the library is performing. So disclaimer, there'll be quite a bit of numbers and graphs and charts, but I'll make sure that it's fun, informational, and that you have some key takeaways, okay? All right. So every month, we do provide a part of the Director's Report, the monthly performance report. It is a snapshot of how well the library is doing. It contains our key performance indicators, circulation, hours of technology, and visits. You may recall back in July 24, we did make quite a few changes we thought were pretty important and significant. We wanted to make sure that the performance report and the director's report were both in alignment with the strategic plan. And also we added some new things like trends and virtual engagements just to kind of tell the whole picture of performance. And overall, the entire director's report is streamlined, not only from the data side, but also how we collect qualitative data from all of our work units to prepare the director's report. So we're pretty proud of those changes that we did launch last summer. So this presentation is really focused on how we close fiscal year 24. That started October 1st, 2023 and closed September 30th, 2024. Now we're going to highlight still our progress towards pandemic recovery for those three key performance indicators. we're kind of talk about our targets that we had set and also actuals, and kind of put those side by side, and that's basically how we measure performance. And then lastly, we'll just kind of summarize and look at the year altogether. So just by some definitions, when we talk about circulation, that's total circulation of both our physical collection and our digital collection. We add those together and call it total circulation. For hours of technology use, we have software that helps us count the hours of public computers, desktops that are used, and also another software that helps us count the number of hours our public Wi-Fi is used. So we add those together, and that's how we measure that KPI.
And are any of the numbers that you're referencing in our director's report, or is this year-end view different?
It's going to be a different period,
Okay.
yes. Oh. And then the last key performance indicator is library visits. That we use software from the Gates to help us count just the foot traffic of who's visiting each of our locations. So we'll take a dive into our very first KPI for circulation. Starting on the left side, 2019, you can notice we had just over 8 million number of checkouts of our library materials. Of course, the pandemic happened that had a decline, but more importantly, we are trending up. And in fiscal year 23, we met and exceeded what performance was before the pandemic, and we did the same last fiscal year in 2024, where we closed with just over 9.5 million of our materials borrowed. So I thought this was pretty important just to kind of share some, nationwide library industry trends regarding circulation. So this image actually was prepared from a consultant, Orange Boy. They offer consulting services for many library systems. They did a white paper. It was called 4 Years Later. And what they did is really compare what did library performance look like in 2020 throughout 2024. And one of their findings was before the pandemic, that yellow line there is physical circulation and the darker line is digital. The shift did change pretty drastically. And this was experienced across, all libraries that were in part of that white paper. Now for SAPL, I know those colors are kind of hard to see, but here what we experienced in 2020, we closed that fiscal year with about 3/4 of our circulation being physical and just only 25% digital. And that did shift when we closed 2024, just like those nationwide trends where we saw almost half, right? We saw 53% physical and 47% digital. Now for library visits, we're still calling this a partial recovery. In 2019, just going back then, we had over 5 million visits counted. Again, we saw that downward trend, but we are trending back up. In 2023, we did have over 3 million visits. In 2024, we closed that fiscal year with 2.7 million recorded visits. And, oops, too fast. There might be a slide that's not here. No, it was visits trends. It's okay, I'm not too sure what happened to it. That's for circulation. I'll just kind of say with words, basically what we're trying to show, here it is, nationwide trends for visits. So another organization that really does support urban libraries, there's an Urban Libraries Council. They did another survey where they looked at urban large libraries back in 2019, how many visits each of those systems had, and then how that compared to 2023. And again, similar trend, urban libraries did see that decline, and we are trending back up, and we are reporting fewer compared to what they were in 2019. Hopefully this works. Okay, there we go. And for our last key performance indicator, hours to technology, I'd like to call this just a significant recovery. In 2019, we had just over 2.3 million hours of technology recorded. And then you can see that similar trend going down and back up, where we closed 2024 with, 2.1 million these last 2 fiscal years. So not quite 100%, but we're definitely trending upwards and in the right direction. And how does that compare to nationwide trends? That same white paper, the 4 years later, did look at how technology users are using the kinds of technology. Back in 2020, a higher percentage was used for public computers, and then a less percentage was public computers in 2024. So that public computers did drop 55% on average across all of those libraries in that white paper, and then Wi-Fi use, on the other hand, did increase. So just basically seeing the shift from public computers being used to more Wi-Fi being used. So if you take a step back and look at some big picture, just summarizing 2024, for circulation, we had a target set at 8.6 million for circulation. We closed, again, 9.5 million, so that's 10% better than the target that we had. For visits, our target was just about 3 million. We closed 2.7, so 10% below. And then for technology, that target was 2.1, and we closed 2.1 million, so just within a 3% range below that target. And then just another visual, just to kind of show you, just if you were to add up each of those individual targets for each of those KPIs all together for circulation, technology, and visit all together, that is a target of 3.8 million. Now, if you do the same thing and you add up our actual numbers for, circulation, visits, and technology, that actually was 14.3 million. So we actually, still performed pretty well, where we, as an aggregate of all of our services, are doing and exceeding our targets. So just some key takeaways to close out the message of this presentation. Just first, each of these KPIs have performed differently and recovered differently since the pandemic. For 2024, each of these targets are within that 10% range, right? Either ahead or below. And very important, we continue to serve all of our resources and services that we offer, that we know the community is using them and continues to see value in that. And then what we're experiencing here and these behaviors are very common with public libraries across the nation. So that is a presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Yeah, I did have a question, and this may be more of a Kathy question. In the metrics in 2019, I know it was really high for visits and things like that. How many libraries did we have under renovation that year?
Can you go back to that slide, Scott, just showing the visits?
Because I feel like every year since the pandemic, we have had a library at least in construction for 2 to 6 months. Just thinking this year about Johnston, it felt like an entire year. So yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you could also answer related to that. Are these visits normalized for? Sorry, is a comparison normalized for closures, for library closures?
So, Kathy, you want to address the closures first, and then we can talk about targets?
Yes. So they are not normalized for closures. Our targets do take into account the closures that we know are going to happen, right, in the budget. So that's that. In terms of whether closures are a factor, absolutely. Although, I don't know why Scott's doing a little light hazing of me and moving all the slides around. Oh, it's Randall. It's Randall. So I spent actually quite a bit of time talking about this in the budget presentation back over the summer because it looks very dramatic, right? This is something that is a change in behavior and use of the library kind of across the country. Kind of all the major urban public libraries and the smaller public libraries are experiencing this. So it's a contributing factor, but it's not a major cause because we had pretty similar closures, each year. So it definitely explains a little bit of it, but it's not a primary driver, I guess is the way I would put it, because the primary driver really is a huge explosion of the use of digital. And so I think one thing that is important, and I know the board knows this, is that, it isn't a false choice, right? Of, oh, we don't need bricks and mortar libraries anymore. Because in that 2.7 million visits, it's all the things like programs, coming and getting physical materials, getting reference help, places to stay warm, so it's a little bit of a factor, but doesn't explain like a big part of it.
Well, and I think Marcy brought up a good point when she was sharing her trustee information. It's really easy on a day when you can't go to the library to pull up your Libby app and get the digital and not have to worry about braving a storm to get a physical book, so.
And I think that, so Randall has often prepared information in the aggregate too. So looking at all three KPIs together, because we do see changes in behavior. So for example, that trend, which definitely is true for SAPL, of more folks using Wi-Fi, fewer folks using the computers as computer sessions. But when we look at the aggregate overall, library use is increasing. Now, we're not quite recovered in the aggregate from the pandemic, but it's close. It's getting very, very close. So people have not stopped using the library, but they are using it in some different ways.
Related to visits, do these visit counts that you're sharing include visits to outdoor programming where there are quite a few library spaces where you can reach the outdoor programming without passing through the door counters?
It could be a maybe. These numbers, you have to walk through the front door and pass through that gate. So in most cases, every location is a little bit different. If that did occur, then yes, it could be included if it's like an outdoor program. But if it's like an off-site or walking around the branch, to that destination, then no. We're really trying to focus on walking at least through the building or using services in the footprint of the building.
I will say that one way we can track some of the use just on-site, even if you don't come in the building, is the hours of technology because of the footprint of the Wi-Fi. So that's captured with the hours of technology.
Well,
But
I was thinking of like
is door count.
Okay, yeah, so like Carver has this outdoor space, Igo has an outdoor space, and there was, I think last month, a pooch parade, where you just, because people have their dogs, they're not going through the door count, they're actually going to the outside, which is accessible from both parking lots. And then Parman has a really nice outdoor space as well. So I'm just curious, like for those events, is there someone there counting the number of visits? Is that going into our programming, even if it's not going into our library visits?
Yes, so for any programs, we do a program count of attendees.
Okay, and
Yes.
that's added in?
Not into visits, no.
Okay.
It's in the program numbers,
Okay.
which is part of the director's report, but it's just not a KPI.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just some other things, and I apologize, but I was looking at the director's report, and it looks as if during the current fiscal year, our year-to-date visits are way up over goal, which congratulations. Do you have any kind of an explanation for that? Do we think it's just part of the recovery process? Or?
Well, 2025 is a little unique because we had an election last fall. A lot of our visits, are increased because of that.
Thank you.
So yes, we
I'm
are.
trying to forget that.
And a related question on this, on the technology, it looks like we're down on this month's report, fiscal year 25 hours of technology and year-to-date Wi-Fi hours. Any, you showed like the white paper and the trend, it kind of described the opposite as for what we're
The trend
experiencing.
is actually the ratio between physical and digital. I mean, sorry, not physical. It's between computer use and Wi-Fi use. Now, what you're seeing here for fiscal 25, that negative number, it really has to do with something different. Last summer, our ITSD department started replacing equipment and software for how Wi-Fi use is collected. Now that a project is finished, and now the new numbers are just reporting a little bit different. Now, when we create those targets, they're actually done in the summer as part of budget development, and that's before any knowledge of this project happening occurred. So it's unfortunate that we had to create these targets before we knew of this change, But that's the reason why we have those targets in place.
And what was the change? Sorry, I missed what was the change?
It is equipment and software that's used to count the Wi-Fi
So
use
is
in
it
sessions.
can you say a little more about that? Is it undercounting, overcounting, or?
Yeah, so when the equipment change happened and the software change happened, we believe that it's now undercounting use, because as you can see in the report that you're looking at right now, we're under by 17% for Wi-Fi hours. We think that's an artifact of the change in the equipment and the way the software's counting the hours of use, because if it really was going down that dramatically, we would think we would see that also in visits. Because of course you have to be on site, you know, to use, and primarily the Wi-Fi is used inside. So that's why in looking at this, we think it's a difference in the way the software is counting the use. And so one factor that we're thinking contributes to this is because in the old system, the old software system, if you were even a blip, like you just were walking down a hall and happened to get on the Wi-Fi, it would count it as a certain number of minutes. The new way doesn't. So we think this is an artifact of that change. And so I'm so glad you asked. We meant to kind of proactively present that as a change, because it can look in the numbers like it's going down fairly dramatically. And as Randall mentioned, that change happened after we set targets. So that's going to be something that will continue to look like a decrease against targets until we set new targets, kind of under the new system.
And a follow-up question to that. So is that the explanation? You mentioned that you're thinking it could be that. Is there follow-up work that needs to be done to confirm that?
Yes, so we have exhausted our colleagues at ITSD over the course of the past 4 months, I would say, and that is not something I can completely prove 100%, but that is the conclusion we've come to at this point as the explanation. So we did do really extensive follow-up work with them to try to make 100% sure that that's what's happening. The best professional opinion is that that's what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the plan to redo the targets? When would that be done?
That is done as part of the budget process. So that's done as we approach proposed budget.
Okay.
So that would be August timeframe.
Okay, thank you. And then last question is regarding virtual engagement. I think this is a new metric that we have, and maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the virtual engagement. And then I also see that that is down quite a bit too, -29% and -24%. Any ideas as to why? It's a two-part question. Can you tell us what the virtual engagement is? Just a real quick recap, and then any guesses as to why it's down?
Yeah, so the virtual engagements, yes, it is new, and it's just a way we're trying to show how all of our various platforms are still used. So like, you know, the My SAPL webpage and social media and the app downloads. So those are not a true like one-to-one like visit, right? It's just like a somewhat of interaction. A lot of it has to do with, you know, seasonal and marketing campaigns, and it just can change. Now, that's why we also like to include that social media, the other one is right below that chart. It's the impressions, yes. So impressions is an also different measure, and that is also a different way of looking at social media and how, you know, our users are using it. So they're just different types of use. And then again, I don't know if there's any exact reasonings for that. We could look into it and see if we can explain.
Scott, do you want to add to that for the aspect? Because a lot of it, of course, is the effort out of Scott's group.
I think it's the online platforms is the one that's -29, so, but yeah, you could talk to impressions.
I don't know that I can add a whole lot to what Randall said. I think he did a really nice job of summarizing what we've attempted to do by capturing virtual engagements in aggregate. Digital platforms are our virtual access tools like Canopy, Libby, Overdrive, the tools that we use to access Overdrive materials. as far as impressions and engagements on social media, one thing that Randall didn't mention is that those metrics can be volatile. They can be a little bit more volatile and unpredictable than some of our circulation goals and the things that we consider to be our KPIs, our key performance indicators. And so metrics like impressions can rely on things like changes in the API to social media platforms. And so we will see more volatility in those throughout the year than in something like visits to our spaces. So it may be down one month and it may spike the next month because, we had a huge post and everybody liked it.
And I guess I can share, because just Reed, I know your question was around the engagements as well. So we have a funded project as part of our IT roadmap to revamp the digital experience for library users. And so it really is the website, but all those ancillary services that you either access through the website or access online. And so a starting point for that effort is all the, kind of heuristics around using those systems, customer experience, and looking at the statistics, so that if there's any pain points or static with people getting access to certain things, that our improvements will address it.
Okay.
So I think that project may help us better understand, why the negative 12% kind of situation.
Yeah, I was looking at this one, the negative 29%.
Okay.
Which I think is a little more drastic, and definitely, we shouldn't just, turn the page on that without asking what the impact is. And I do wonder, and I don't think this is necessarily for you, Scott, but you happen to be standing in front of me.
Lucky me.
I do think when we see these big drops, like a 30%, this negative 29 and this negative 24, something that would be interesting for us to take a look at is like, is there some type of login issue, for example? Did something change in Overdrive or something change in Canopy where maybe users aren't able to log in? And generally, my experience with digital platforms is that someone can't log in, they won't do anything. They'll just switch to a different app or they'll do something else. And I think it's good for us to just keep that in mind, that, are our users not engaging virtually because they can't, because something has
There's an access
changed?
issue.
Yeah, there might be something on a national level that.
Adams, Zabie, and I can take a look at those numbers
Okay.
a bit more deeper and find some answers for you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But overall, so let me just make sure if there are any other questions. I think Beth has one.
I have one more. Kathy, when you mentioned that the old software was counting perhaps blips as somebody just passed by a point, are we able to discriminate between public use of the Wi-Fi and staff use? For example, if somebody is on a laptop or something like that, so we know that we're measuring public use?
Absolutely, because it's, the staff use is not on the public Wi-Fi network. Yeah, so the numbers we're talking about are public use, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I guess if I could just add just one more little thing. The other thing about that 29%, just for that I think is really important for us to keep looking at is, of course, a lot of this use that we're talking about is through Overdrive and Canopy. And so we, like pretty much every other major urban public library system across the country are struggling to keep up with digital use and the demand. And so this could be kind of that factor of you may give up a little bit at a certain point if you can't get your content as quickly as you would like. So that's another consideration we're really looking at.
Yeah, I think it would be great for the team, when appropriate, to double click into that and then just share with us like some findings.
Absolutely.
It's not urgent by any means, but I think that's the wonderful thing about this director's report, and by Randall providing this fiscal year overview, is that we have an opportunity to take a look at some of the details in a little bit of a different view. So thank you for that report. And if we add page numbers to the director's report, so I could say like page 7, I wouldn't be mad about that.
That
either.
is an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
The next item that we have is to review and consider approval of proposed location of public art at the Cody branch. And Jessica, you'll be introducing this item.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. We have with us our colleagues from the Department of Art and Culture who will be presenting about public art location proposed for the Cody Branch Library. So this evening we have Alyssa Franklin, who is here with us, but also supported by her colleagues at Public Art. Excellent department to work with. We collaborate with them on several projects. We also are working with the Las Palmas project for public art. So they're very invested in ensuring that it's a collaborative approach, not only from department to department, but within the community, and then also understanding the governance structure of our library board. So it is always a pleasure to work with them. So I will welcome Alyssa.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alyssa Franklin, Public Art Project Manager, as Jessica so kindly introduced. And so today I'm here to talk with you all about a public art project at Cody Branch Library, which is located at 11441 Vance Jackson Road in District 8. And our public art scope is to design, fabricate, and install a relief mural for the library building's exterior facade. A little bit later on, I'll explain what we mean when we say relief mural. And funding for this project comes from the 2022 bond streets proposition, and the Public Works Department with that streets funding is making improvements to nearby Vance Jackson Road with a focus on the Vance Jackson and Wurzbach intersection, so just down the street from where Cody Library is located. And we're really excited to leverage this opportunity to create a new public art piece for Cody Branch Library utilizing this streets funding. And our stakeholders for this project include District 8 Council Office, San Antonio Public Library, the Board of Trustees and its Facilities Committee, visitors to the library, nearby neighborhood associations, schools, and residents. So here we have an aerial view of Cody, which has Shenandoah Street running in front of the property and Vance Jackson Road running immediately to the right of it on this view. And we can start appreciating the curved exterior facade. I won't be as good at this as Jeff, but I'll try my best. Curved exterior facade along the front of the building, which is where we're going to propose placing this artwork. And so here now, this view is as though we're heading up Vance Jackson Road, I guess I should say, towards Cody Library, and that Shenandoah intersection is that light with the blue car right there. And then if we keep driving, if we took a left at that light, let's say, and then we came in the main entrance for Cody, now we've come in off Shenandoah and we're looking at the main entrance and really appreciating some of those great curves on the exterior. I wish Jeff was here to hear me not do as good of a job as him. And so now we'll get to the fun part. And so, and we have this additional view too from Shenandoah Street of Cody Branch Library. So let me just hop over here. So these areas that are highlighted in pink on the screen are parts of our proposed artwork location. In a subsequent slide, I'm going to show y'all an additional view that includes also the left-hand side of the entrance. And so what we can see here is our team, or I should back up for just a moment. Our team has coordinated very closely with SAPL staff on this location recommendation. And some of our thoughts behind proposing this location to you all is the visibility, high traffic nature of it, because it is right adjacent to the main entrance, the public entrance of the facility. And we've also considered that this wall space has what we would like to say minimal interference from landscaping, drainage spouts, other equipment that could present maintenance or logistical challenges for the artwork. So we have more of a blank canvas. We have more room for the artists to do what they do best. And so once we have an artist on board, which is going to be later in our process, we will present all of these highlighted locations to them, and then as they develop the artwork's location, the artwork's precise shape or footprint will come together. So what we're showing you today is sort of like the maximum footprint, and then if it gets refined and they select specific areas from within these highlighted portions that you're seeing today, you'll be presented that in update briefings accordingly once we're in the design process.
And Alyssa, if I could just add one thing just really briefly. So in selecting a proposed location to present tonight, as Alyssa said, they worked with us as staff members. We briefed Jaspreet on this, and then the facilities committee did approve and forward it tonight to the board.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. important context. And so then on this next slide, so here's where we're going to talk a little bit more about what we mean when we call something a relief mural. So that is a wall-mounted sculpture in which three-dimensional elements are raised from a flat base. So in this case with Cody Library, we're talking about the exterior wall of the building. And so we have two examples of relief murals that are in the city's collection. On the left, some of you might recognize Henry Rayburn's piece at Maverick Library. And then on the right, we have Deborah Mirsky's piece, which is at the Southeast Service Center. And so both of these artworks are characterized by elements that are raised from a flat, vertical surface, creating the works of art. And so here's the aforementioned location slide that gives you a highlighted pink view of the area to the left of the doorway as well. So really when we're talking about the whole picture, we're considering a small portion immediately to the left of the main entrance, and then really looking at that curved wall near the parking lot that swings its way around to the right. And so kind of putting that whole package together as our total potential footprint for the artwork. And so another thing that we wanted to highlight on this slide, and this comes from the great conversation and feedback that we had at the Facilities Committee earlier this month, which some of the questions, if I recall correctly, had to do with, well, this building already has some exterior features on it, such as this outdoor lighting, there's some signage, there's a drainage spouts, there's some landscaping, et cetera. We're certainly not going to interfere with that wonderful oak tree in order to put art up, for example. And so what we're highlighting here is that these existing features are already on here, and then on the subsequent slide, I'm going to show y'all an example of another mural that was recently done that's in the city's collection where the artists worked around existing building features and still came up with something really great. And so let's get to that now. And so this is The Spirit Within by lead artists Ashley Garza and Haley Marmolejo in collaboration with Sananto Cultural Arts. And this was installed on the Farmers Market building at Historic Market Square downtown. And you can see I only highlighted a couple of the sconces with the white rings on the page, but there's actually a whole series of them on either side of that doorway. And the artists were able to work those into their design. They also dealt with the large loading bay doorway, and there was also building signage and other elements. There's drainage and stuff that they all worked around and were able to still come up with a really thoughtful and intentional and gorgeous design. And so that's just an example of how wonderful our artists are, that they can work with those specific considerations that are already part of the building and still come up with something great. And so then just to give y'all a little bit more context on our process, and then I'll talk about our project schedule. So every one of our public art projects begins with project initiation. Then we have our community engagement phase, which is where we identify the theme and inspiration for the artwork, and that is a public survey that we will have in-person tabling events, printed surveys, as well as host it online on SA Speak Up, and it will be in both English and Spanish. And then we move from that artwork and theme and inspiration phase into artist selection. From there, we design the artwork, then fabricate and install, and then we always close our public art projects with a dedication celebration or an opening or unveiling ceremony, if you will. And the graphic is nice because it shows that we really engage with community and stakeholders from start to finish. And my cheesy joke is that we have the community involved in everything but the actual welding of the metal sculpture. We don't let them do that. But besides that, we really want people involved start to finish. And so piggybacking off that, for our schedule, we initiated this project with our Public Art Committee in November of 2023. The Facilities Committee, we just met with them on January 8th. I can't believe we're already on the 22nd presenting to you all. This month is flying by. And then should we receive approval for the art location today, we plan to open our community engagement survey here in the next couple months. And then artist selection shortly after that. Design, winter 2026, we're going by Public Works definitions of the season. So that's actually January, February, March. So we would hope to have the final design about a year from where we are right now, because we're in winter 2025 according to Public Works. So, and then we will return to you all around that time with the design briefing and possible action. And then we hope by that summer following right after there, so maybe about 18 months from now, maybe a little sooner, we will have the new relief sculpture installed at Cody Library. And I believe that was my last slide. Yep.
And I guess one touch point with the board as well is in the artist selection process. So what has happened in the past is that the trustee from the district in which the project is will be invited to be part of the artist selection panel.
Yes, thank you, Kathy.
Okay, that's great. Can you go back a couple slides? I had provided some feedback to Kathy last month about the,
I think the backup
oh,
button is
okay,
the
I
one
think,
that was troublesome.
yeah, Scott can probably help us navigate too.
Two more back. The one with the double pink, yeah.
Yeah, maybe two more
Okay.
before this too, where it shows the view from Vance Jackson. And
the street view, that's towards
yeah,
the
the street
beginning.
view,
Sorry
yep.
about that. Yeah.
And maybe I may not have been clear in communicating my perspective on this, but this wall here, like when you're driving down Vance Jackson, you can see that there's like, it's in need of some love, in my opinion. It's not very inviting as in terms of a library space that's engaging as you're going by. So I had given the feedback that I think that area should be considered. I don't know if that was shared, Kathy, was that shared? Shared back?
So no, I apologize because I thought we addressed it with if you go forward. So when you said expand the location, that's why we added the second piece to the left of the doorway.
Okay. Yeah.
So because the visibility of the entrance from the street, from the
Is-
corner.
yeah,
Yeah,
is
so
blocked,
I
yeah.
apologize because if we show, just going forward a couple of slides, I think it is. So, you know, just when we get to the pink, so one more, I think, yeah. So we originally had just suggested that area to the right of the
Yep.
entrance, and I thought that your feedback was this addition to the
On
left.
to the left, okay,
But I
yeah.
didn't realize you meant
Yes.
the wall even farther down.
Right, and I think, I do want to share it because it's the right time to give this feedback. I actually think with that tree there, this additional suggestion, which, thank you for adding it, Kathy, would be better served like on that outside wall. And I did have an opportunity to speak with my councilman about this as well, and he was in agreement of that suggestion, and I just spoke with him yesterday. So I apologize, it's not a ton of notice, but it would essentially be maybe the brick or something on this side. There is like on to the left of that, Jessica, if you can point a little bit more to the left, yeah, quite a bit wide open space. That I would appreciate consideration of that in place of that other wall.
So not in place of the curved part, but in place of that
Yeah,
flat part?
in place
Okay.
of that flat.
And I
that-
apologize
yeah.
again, because I thought it was the spot to the left of the entrance. Okay.
Yeah.
That
So
ex-
just a
that
little-
explains why you were asking for an additional street view. Now I get it.
Yes, yep. So nothing beats meeting in person and actually looking at slides, I
Yep.
guess, right, Kathy? So, Andrea, I know this already came to facilities for discussion, but I am hopeful that you all can take into consideration this change. And maybe as a board, we can deliberate on this now. I know you're looking at the street view.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what it,
And one of my concerns, the reason for this suggestion, and I think the council office also agrees with this, is if you look at the view from Shannondale Road, do you mind just switching to that view? Maybe, yeah, right there. So a bit of the front, because of these beautiful oak trees, a bit of the detail of the Cody Library, the entrance is obscured from the road. And we do want, like this is taxpayer dollars that we're putting into these bond projects, right? So we want it to be inviting, but we want it to be a good use of, we want to be good stewards of how that is being utilized as well. So that curved area is visible, which is really nice.
is it past the windows?
And
you
then
were
the other
suggesting?
area that I'm referring to is to the left. You can't see it from this view. It's on Vance Jackson. So it's right here, to the
Okay.
left, yeah.
So behind that tree.
Behind that tree. And that tree is, you can't tell here, but it's tall enough that you can get a good view of that portion of the building. So that's just my comment to that.
So it would be that, kind of tan area, and then still the curved area that
Yes.
is in the picture to the
Yep.
left. Okay.
Yep, correct.
Yep, that was a complete miss on my part,
That's
so
okay.
again, I apologize.
So we're taking away the other part? Can we see the two pink areas? Yeah, we're taking away that on the left?
I think
Because we
that
had
was,
concern about the tree being there.
Yeah.
So we weren't sure why, but we said,
We were
okay, well,
keeping
this
it because of
Yeah.
the proposed suggestion
Exactly.
that was
Yeah.
misinterpreted,
Yeah.
yes.
So we thought,
And
so
you
you
were
don't
one-
want that part now?
I never wanted that part. I
Well,
think,
we were
I
told
think,
you did.
no. I think there was like some wires got crossed in our communication. So that pink area just needs to be on the outside of the
Okay.
building, outside Vance Jackson.
And
Yeah.
honestly,
Well, it makes sense,
we
there's no
have,
trees there. It makes
Mhm,
sense.
yeah,
we
yeah.
have plenty of time too. So if you'd like us to even bring it back next month with it shown, it's obviously completely up to you.
Yeah.
I think that would be best to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I
Okay.
think the facilities committee, hearing that the facility committee was questioning the location, now that I've explained it, I think we could just modify the action, but I'm open to.
Would that affect anything on Neil's part, or would that change anything?
In terms of design or? Yes.
I don't have an issue with moving what the accidental label to the left of the proposed art location and then moving it to that flat wall on the exterior. One thing that's nice about that is like Jaspreet is saying, we don't have to worry about a tree being immediately in front of it and obscuring it, and we also don't have one of those pesky drainage spouts, which was to the other side of the door. So I'm okay with it. Jordan, did you want? Are you okay? She's my manager, so I was like, maybe I'll phone a friend. But so we could say that we'll have that flat wall that's on the very left. It's like the back corner of the building, and it is the most visible from Vance Jackson. You're correct. And then that fun curved area that's by the parking lot as the potential footprint, and then we can refine that further with the artist.
So would it just be an amended motion of the schematics?
Yeah, we
do
can
that
go,
just today?
we can go to the motion and, yeah, so. Accept the recommendation from the
Would it be the
facilities
same
committee
motion
with,
if we, how do we?
with the change?
With the change.
Do we put amended anywhere here?
I think you'll just, if you make the motion, since you're the chair of facilities, and just describe that it's the two outer walls of the Cody Branch Library, one on the far left of the building and one on the right. Yes.
Yes. So the action tonight, as I understand it, I just want to be sure, is that those two locations will be shared with the artist, and then the artist will determine which of those two locations is best for their art piece. I just want to be sure that that's what I'm understanding. Or if action is for both locations, will there be art on both locations?
Yes.
I think as long as it made sense from the budget perspective, once we start to have a design in place, then I'm definitely open as project manager to directing the artists to consider both spaces. And I think especially once we get a design under us and start to do a little bit of pricing and feasibility, and as long as we're able to accommodate both areas and do something that is wonderful and impactful with both, I don't have an issue with trying for that and doing our best to make it happen.
So the idea is the curved wall and now the wall that we've identified on Vance Jackson, both. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. So Andrea, if you're comfortable just making the motion and mention in the motion that it's the curved wall and the wall on the far left of the building.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to make the motion to accept the updated recommendation from the Facilities Committee, moving one section of the wall down and keeping one of the original locations for the public art project at the Cody Branch Library.
Okay, we have a first from Andrea.
And I second.
And a second from Joanne, thank you. Can you lead us in a roll call vote, please? Or, I'm sorry, any discussion?
Yeah,
I'm jumping ahead.
Again, I'm sorry, Jessica. I understood the same thing you did, that it could have been either of those locations or both of those locations, depending on artists' input and budget. But now we are looking at doing both locations regardless. Is that?
And just moving one of them.
My understanding is like the possible locations are changing.
Right.
So like the
And my
pink
question
area is
is-
changing, but from what I've heard, they still need to select an artist and then get a design.
Exactly.
Yes, and get a design, and then that design and the cost for their vision will inform where the final location of the art is, and that also will be brought back to the board, maybe about a year from now was like an estimate, and we'll have an opportunity to look at that and understand that,
So
yes.
my question is gonna be, what if, because if I was the artist, I would love that curved wall, and that flat wall would leave me flat. What if the recommendation does not deal, and I agree with you, that wall probably does need some love, the flat wall probably does need some love, but what if the recommendation, either budget-wise or artistically, doesn't deal with that? What if we wind up with work on the curved wall over by the entrance, and we still have another wall that doesn't, that still needs a lot of work?
I think if we
Or
find
I
ourselves
guess
in
I'm
that
wondering if
situation,
we're
we,
kind of jumping the gun here, if we ought to go back and.
well, I think, I'll answer and then maybe other trustees can chime in as well. But, my perspective on that would be that if we're in a situation where only one of the surfaces is like the artist wants to work on, that we would address that during the next round of approvals, which has to do with the exact design. Right now, we're just looking at the possible locations for the art.
Okay.
And then if anyone else wants to chime in or has a different view, maybe members of Facilities Committee.
Because it'll go back to facilities before the full board. So we'll be able to see what the artist's view is and what is the process? Does the artist?
Do you want to go back to your process slide? Maybe?
Yeah, so do they get to see the space that they have and they kind of, I don't know how they would
Yes,
share
so
that?
once the artist has been selected by the artist selection panel, and we can also talk more about that too if it's helpful, but once the artist has been selected and contracting is completed, well, kind of in that process, because really we call them once they've been selected and we let them know and we make sure that they're interested and available to do the projects. I should step back just a little bit. At that point, we will mention that it's an exterior relief sculpture project at Cody Library, and we will show them the kind of total potential footprint of what that could be. And so they'll know what areas are opportunities and then what areas are excluded from the art opportunity. And then we'll also have them take the lead as professional artists and with their artistic vision and proposing a design. And so depending on how they want to address those two sort of blank canvases, if you will. And our team will also kind of balance the artist vision with, of course, the kind of the rationality of what the budget is. And so we will have to ensure that we're within our budget, but kind of balance with that. So they will be proposed from the very beginning of bringing them on board, even before the contract is officially signed. They'll know that this is where the artwork will be located and what our scope is. And then we'll work together to kind of help reinforce their vision, but also keep it within something that makes, fiscal sense. Does that help answer the question? So we give them agency, but we also try to keep them on a clear path.
Okay.
And so what we can do, because as the motion stands, it's both walls, right? If it becomes not feasible to have both walls, we'll keep the facilities committee up to date as this develops. And then also just Bree as the representative, and then if a different action needs to be taken, we could definitely bring it back.
And related to the motion, after consulting with the city attorney's office, because the facilities committee is not meeting to amend their motion, recommendation is to restate the motion simply as what the action item is tonight, as opposed to accept the updated recommendation from facilities committee, since the committee.
Could you just say that out, and then
We
Andre
could-
could say.
Yeah, we
that's
have it here.
finished.
Let's continue with the discussion since we've already entered into discussion, and then I'll ask for amended motion. Is that okay, Jessica? Okay. Any other, because Beth, you had asked a question, I want to make sure that
Right,
we address. I think allow me to take the liberty of restating. I believe, I understand your concern is like, what if we say, here are the 2 locations that we'd like you to provide art for, and we select an artist, and then the artist says, oh, I'm only gonna do one of the 2.
Or the budget says that.
Or the budget says, oh,
Yeah.
only one of the 2. Then we'll have to make a decision, do we have like really great art on only one spot, or do we have lesser great art on 2 spots, right? Because there's only 2 ways to resolve an issue like that.
Actually, my concern is not being able to deal with the wall that you have a concern with.
Okay.
If it turns out that way, because we could wind up with a really great product
Mhm.
by the entrance and still leave that other wall that needs love.
Yes.
Needing love.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm
Yeah, I
wondering
thank you
about.
for mentioning that. I appreciate it. And I think that as part of being briefed on this, I understand that we want the art to be as close as possible to the entrance, right? Because that's where people are going to be walking by it. Now, Maverick Library, which is in District 7, has art that's like the other side of the building, but it is on the more, the area that gets the most traffic. So I think they probably had to make a decision when it came to that art project, like, where do you have it? And I'm just suggesting that we consider both, because if it's possible within this budget to address both, I think that would be a big benefit.
Oh, absolutely.
And I heard positive support from my councilman's office to support that as well. I don't want to supersede the whole design to have, to take away that curved wall. So this is kind of like an additional nice to have. And I appreciate everyone allowing me to speak up at the last minute and share that. Any other concerns or questions? No? Okay, and then, do you?
So what do I need to do?
Yeah, do you want to make a motion that's just, for the approval of the proposed location of the public art at Cody Branch Library?
Was there a motion and a second on the floor?
Yes.
So we need to
So it has to be amended?
amend that motion, yeah.
But we need to rephrase it, yeah.
Yes, okay. So then just go with exactly what it says up there.
No, you can read this.
Your minutes,
You can say that
your
you're gonna,
agenda.
you can say that you're gonna revise. So this is for agenda item number 17. And just say that you're gonna revise your previous motions.
Okay, I'm gonna revise my previous motion to accept the proposed location of public art at the Cody Branch Library as discussed at the meeting, the January 22nd library board meeting.
Okay, so we have a first and a
Second.
Fernanda, okay, thank you. So we have a first from Andrea and a second from Fernando. And perhaps we can do a vote. Thank you.
Carla Gurgiolo,
Aye.
Joanne Harris,
Aye.
Josie Martinez,
Aye.
Andrea Sanchez Muniz,
Aye.
Marianne Valdez Hernandez,
Aye.
Fernanda Cardenas,
Aye.
Michelle Dalbis Robledo,
Aye.
Marcy Ince,
Aye.
Beth Graham,
Aye.
Judy Cruz is absent, Jaspreet Kaur.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and thank you for taking our feedback in the moment. I appreciate the support on this. Next, we're going to review and consider the library board's 2025 work plan and take appropriate action. And I believe the work plan is in our packet. Let me just find that sheet and Sydney's passing it out. You're passing it out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't get one.
You don't get a pretty one.
I wanted on the, what is that color, buff?
Yes.
Let's see, this is number 19. 19. Oh, it is on the pretty buff.
For Adam, we're not going to make lots of water. Okay, thank you, Sydney. So this is a proposed work plan for 2025, and we took into consideration when establishing this, the plan from 2024. You'll see that the number one priority is the interlocal agreement, or the ILA, with Bear County. And then number 2 is the budget development process. And I've added in here the 2027 bond development process because it's never too early to start working on the bond and start preparing for the bond. We want to stay focused on the library strategic plan. And next, we have the appointment of the new library director, which is, the appointment is completed, but we want to focus on the integration and onboarding of the new director into the library operations and ecosystem. Number 5 is strengthening collaborative efforts with our key library stakeholders, and many of who are here today. And then finally, library board engagement. So I will entertain a motion to accept this new strategic plan. And then we can, of course, once there's a motion made and seconded, we can also discuss if there are any alternates that need to, or any questions about the items included in the work plan.
I move we accept the 2025 Library Board Work Plan as presented. I second.
And was that Marcy?
Yes.
Right, a second? Okay, thank you.
They're hiding in the corner.
Okay, any questions or comments about the work plan? Okay, then I will, I can just take a vote on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And our last agenda item is to review and consider the library board committee appointments and liaison assignments. And for these, yes, yes, please, thank you. And the draft version of the committee assignments is included here. As Sydney's getting these to you, I want to thank Carla and Fernanda, who are stepping up into new committee assignments. I'm really excited to see them work and really proud of them to, taking this next step. And Michelle, I want you to know that committee assignments can be made at any time, so I'll be checking in with you in a couple of months as you're starting to get onboarded and see if there's some committees that you want to join. It's a great way to learn about the board, the work of the board, and honestly, the most important work that our board does is done in the committees. So here you'll see a revised committee assignment sheet, and I'll just direct you to the 2 committees that have changes. The first one, and they're both ad hoc committees. The first one is the Ad Hoc Library Policies Committee. This committee meets monthly, and I'm proposing 3 changes. The first one is that the chair will now be Judy Cruz. She's not here today, but she did agree to take on that role. The second change is that Carla will be joining this Ad Hoc Library Policies Committee, and the third change is that Fernanda will be joining that committee. So we have a new chair, and then we have 2 new members of that committee. And then the next committee that has changes is the Ad Hoc Bond Committee. That committee meets as needed and is still being chaired by Marcy Ince, but Carla will be joining that committee as well as a member. So those are the changes. Again, just to summarize, it's Judy Cruz as chair of Ad Hoc Library Policies, Carla and Fernanda being added to the committee, and then Carla being added to the Ad Hoc Bond Committee. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer that or provide feedback. And then I'm also asking for a motion to accept the committee assignments.
As presented.
Second.
Okay, we had a first from Marcy. And who was the second? Was it Fernanda? Yeah, Fernanda, okay. And any questions or feedback on that? Okay, so we can vote on this. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Was that a vote for opposed or in favor of? Okay. Okay. All right. So thank you all for your support, and I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Target 7.